America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in compliance with NJSA 10:4, the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this duly and regularly scheduled meeting of the Jackson Township Board of Adjustment has been published and posted in all appropriate locations.
Thank you. Danielle, roll call.
Here.
Mr. Hurley is absent. Ms. Camello is absent. Ms. Russell?
Here.
Ms. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Costanzo?
Here.
Mr. Najarian?
Here. Okay, so we have, make approval on your resolutions, Danielle.
Yes. First is Resolution 2021-39A, Skirbo, Terra Nova Skirbo, Block 9302, Lot 2, 3 Olivia Way, denying approval for detached garage. Eligible are Ms. Russell, Ms. Bradley, Mr. Costanzo, Mr. Najarian.
And, Mr. Chairman, just prior to the vote, just so folks know or recall, there was a review of the minutes and of the Zoom meeting, and we corrected a vote. There's nothing substantive being corrected.
Okay, I'll need a motion and a second on this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-48, Cornerstone Presbyterian Church, Block 1801, Lot 11.01, 569 Harmony Road, granting administrative approval. Eligible are Mr. Book, Ms. Russell, Mr. Costanzo, Mr. Najarian.
I need a motion and a second on this resolution, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo,
Yes.
Mr. Najarian.
Yes.
And that concludes the resolutions for this evening.
We don't have enough for Hanson to discuss that? I forgot.
Yes, so we don't have enough.
All right.
All right, we're going to jump into the minutes. Have any minutes that we need to approve?
Yes. One second, let me just check my list. First, there's an amendment for the regular meeting minutes of September 1st of 2021. Eligible are Ms. Russell, Ms. Bradley, Mr. Costanzo, Mr. Najarian.
And Mr. Chairman, again, just for clarification purposes, to bring everything together, that clarification now is in line with the resolution, and the resolution is in line with the minutes.
Beautiful. I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo,
Yes.
Mr. Najarian.
Yes.
Second is the regular meeting minutes from November 3rd, 2021. Eligible are Mr. Book, Ms. Russell, Mr. Costanzo, Ms. Bradley, Mr. Najarian. I went out of order, I apologize.
Okay, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo,
Yes.
Mr. Najarian.
Yes.
And last is the regular meeting minutes from November 17th. Eligible are Mr. Book, Ms. Russell, Ms. Bradley, Mr. Costanzo, Mr. Najarian.
I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo,
Yes.
Mr. Najarian.
Yes.
That concludes the minutes for this
Excellent.
evening.
Okay. Moving forward, I have two vouchers, okay? I have one from King Reporting, it's $250, and I have one for the board secretary for $150. I need a motion and a second.
Move to pay the bills.
Second.
Need a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo,
Yes.
Mr. Najarian.
Yes. Do we have anything other going down the list here?
No, Mr. Chairman, I am not aware of anything else.
All right, let's swear in the professional.
Oh, wait, hang on, I was incorrect.
Application number
Forgot about it.
6 on the agenda has requested to be carried, and that's being carried to February 16th of 2022.
And Mr. Chairman, that's a use variance, and with 5 net members here, that's a correct thing on their part. So with that, Mr. Chairman, application, preliminary and final site plan 831, use variance 3350, Spiros Vlahos, 643 Herman Road. That matter is being carried to the February 16, 2022 meeting without the requirement of further notice.
Anything else we have to be talking about here? Okay, good. Then let's swear in the professional.
Gentlemen, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you each of you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Starting with Mr. Hill, if you can introduce yourself.
Evan Hill, Board Engineer.
Ernie Peters, Board Planner.
Jeffrey Peporo, zoning officer.
Frank Miskovich, Board Traffic Engineer.
Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Actually, Mr. Chairman of the board, I just want to remind the board that this is Frank's retiring and it's his last meeting tonight. So I've personally enjoyed working with Frank. You could tell it's his last meeting because he has no suit and tie on. So he's a little bit more relaxed. But I just want to, yeah. I just want to thank him. It's been a pleasure to work with him, and I hope we run into each other again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with this board. I was telling Carl earlier, this is one of the better boards that I've appeared before throughout the state. So kudos to you guys, and I'm going to miss it.
Good job. Knew you for a long
Partially,
time.
anyway.
I've known you for a long time. You did an excellent job, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff.
Concur with everyone's sentiments. I'm going to get back to business. You had, Sean, you had mentioned something about a matter of discussion
Yeah,
for
two
tonight.
matters for discussion, actually. There's two applications that have been hanging. Thomas D. Moore and Green Apple Holdings that have just been sitting out there. And the board is traditionally, as busy as I think the board has been, we all miss that internally a little bit about how long it's just been sitting. So I wanted to bring it to the board's attention. Generally, what you've done is, court process. Generally, if you fail to move a matter in a reasonable period of time, what the court will sometimes dismiss the matter without prejudice for failure to move it. Generally, the board has authorized me to write correspondence to the applicant's attorneys indicating the same thing, that they need to report by a date certain. Otherwise, we're going to dismiss, you'll dismiss the matter administratively without prejudice. They can bring it back. But this way, it's not sitting in the queue. There's enough matters that are active sitting in the queue. So I would propose, given the holidays and stuff, a return date, so to speak, a report date of that for that February 16, 2022 meeting. And if they fail to respond in any respect at that point in time, those matters will be listed on the agenda for administrative dismissal without prejudice.
I think Demore was one.
That's the one I just spoke of.
Fornicalo.
Well,
Fornicalo, he was the one that was looking to run I think the little trucking business out of his yard.
Well, that was the one that was approved, but I believe we're waiting on,
Tom's River for that.
No.
plans from the applicant that at least the Jackson side
No,
can
that's a
be.
different, no, I'm thinking of a different one then.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Mr. Maybe you and I can circle in on others. So I withdraw the request for Green Apple, it sounds like. Is that fair from our professionals?
Little sidebar.
That can be off the record. but- Okay. Gentlemen, can I just ask one quick question, which is, so you're satisfied Green Apple is prosecuting their case right now?
They made a revised submission the end of October.
Okay,
I keep hearing from the applicant's architect, they revised the sketch, the site next to the gas station, you said it? JR's.
okay. That's fine. I withdraw my request for the letter of, for administrative dismissal on Green Apple, but on the Morad, I'd like to just inform the board, I'm going to do that for the February 16 meeting.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to Frank leaving. Do we have any applications coming up for a January reorg?
Well, no.
Bill, you're leaving. Is there a replacement, right? You're leaving. Is there-
Well, the contract ends the end of December the
Can I ask the
31st,
question
so.
differently?
Yeah.
Are there any, you've indicated, I mean, you're not flying out to New Zealand where it's
Not
impossible
next
to be
month, no.
reached. So, exactly. So Mr. Miskovich has indicated that the board reorgs in January. There's no cases scheduled for the first meeting in January where your input is needed. Is that?
No, there were some for February, though,
Yeah. So
that
hang
are
on.
carried,
let's-
but I do have, I
hang
am
on.
traveling in February.
Okay, I'm trying to break down the points so everyone's on the same page. So the board is covered for that January meeting because there's nothing there. That should give sufficient time for anyone the board appoints for being the traffic engineer to coordinate with Mr. Miskovich. However,
What I had, and I think we were talking last meeting, that with the Miles application was for the January 5th meeting. And then there was Bennett for the 19th. So those are the two I had. And 508 Burke were in January. I don't know if those are going to be heard or not.
It was a January 19th meeting.
no.
Yeah. So
Are those,
the answer is, I've done reviews. I can sit down with the new traffic engineer if that's what the board desires, or we can continue, that month on theirs.
That's why I brought it up. I wanted to know how we're going to end. What the conclusion will be. That'd be good.
so are you available for the January 5th meeting if
The
necessary?
the 2 January I am, yes.
Okay, so listen, you can, the board has the power to carry over the appointment to finish up, and you can just run on your contract for 1 month. You have they can do that
That's what I
also.
wanted to ask.
Okay,
That would be acceptable. February, starting in February would become a problem.
All right, where you talking?
Yes.
all right. We can internally coordinate, but the board has the authority to,
All right, let's move forward. Do we have residents in the audience? Okay, thank you. We got that eliminated. We're going to move into the first application, and that is, okay, here we go.
Teresa Jennings, right?
Teresa
Jenkins.
Jenkins. Are you here? Come on up. Come on up. You're going to be sworn in.
Thanks, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, just I have to announce this for the record because generally 7 members constitute a full board. You have 5. You're asking for what they call bulk or C variances, so you need just the bare majority of the members present to vote in your favor.
Okay.
Okay, tell us what you'd like to do.
Put up a fence. It's existing. I just like to get approval.
I'm sorry. The microphone a little closer to you. You can bend it to it. There you go.
Better.
Yeah.
I'd just like to get approval to keep my stockade fence in the location that it's in currently.
And what size? You're going to go to 6 foot?
Yes.
6 foot?
It runs from the side of my house. It doesn't go straight along the road. You'd have to see it. It bumps out. I believe you have the survey and
Okay. Mr. Hill, is there any line of sight issues?
There's no line of sight issues. Just from the paperwork here, it looks like historically, the a zoning permit was issued on April 23rd of 2020, based on a sketch where the stockade fence would have been along the front setback line. It appears that the fence was not constructed as per that permit. Is that correct?
it was supposed to be chain link.
It says
The
6.
original permit that I pulled was for chain link. And then when
Then it,
I changed it to stockade. I didn't realize I had to do that.
Okay. So now the existing stockade fence encroaches within the front setback along the front property line with Paul Road. There are no line of sight issues either exiting the driveway or, or on adjacent properties. So I'm not concerned from a line of sight standpoint. We just don't know, there's no dimensions on this sketch as far as how far off of the property line the fence was actually installed.
See, the issue is you had gotten approval, okay? And not because you changed the size, the type of fence, but the encroachment issue. You understand what that means?
I believe so, yes.
Did they explain that to you?
It's 3 foot off my property line.
And that wasn't the original application that you presented
I would,
to get your permit?
no, they said that I didn't need a permit for the chain link. And then when I had gone back for the
But it's not the chain link that we're having. issue with.
stockade,
Jeff, why don't you
right?
tell us?
Mhm.
Well, you would always have needed the permit for the fence. And if you look at the drawing on the board, although it's in reverse, the yellow line represented the approval for the 6-foot solid fence, and the black line, so to speak, were for the 4-foot chain link. The issue came to be when we discovered that the line in purple was the location, is the current location of the 6-foot solid fence.
Do you understand that? Yeah.
Yeah, but the pink line, I believe that was drawn by code enforcement. That's not the way, I had to amend that picture when I had gone for the variance to show the exact location.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Explain to us why you require a 6-foot stockade fence in your front yard.
It's not in my front yard. My address is Park Avenue. This is in the rear of my property.
Maybe-
So
I understand.
you live on a corner, right?
Correct.
You have Park Avenue and Paul Road, even though you don't utilize well, you do utilize Paul Road with your with a driveway to the, but technically you have there's a front yard along each one of those roadways. That's how it's classified. So even though you use it as your side yard, it's still considered a front yard, and that's why you need the variance.
So
And
because of
any
that strong-
roadway has a front yard setback attached to it, not a side yard.
Ma'am, listen to me very carefully.
Mhm.
So you have a 6-foot, you constructed with, by mistake, people make mistakes. For whatever reason, you changed it. So you have now a 6-foot fence in what is a technical front yard, correct?
Right.
Correct. And because of the nature of this particular lot, it's long and narrow, it fronts on 2 properties, you require, is it not true, the 6-foot stockade fence for the safety and security of your family, so that people don't peek in, it keeps garbage out, and it provides satisfactory sight lines for folks in your household to live, correct?
Correct.
And that's why you asked the board at this particular time to grant this particular relief?
And also, yes.
That's your hardship.
Well,
He gave you the hardship.
yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, through the chair, I just need, I would like to have clarification of the actual distance from your property line, this fence is, how far back this fence is from your property line.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know. You testified it was 3 feet, correct?
At the very minimum. It's not in a
It's no
straight
closer
line.
than 3 feet.
No closer than 3
And you
feet, no.
agree that should the board grant your application, you will provide some sort of sketch with proper measurements to ensure that it's at a minimum 3 feet from that property line, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You have a sidewalk on your property, ma'am?
Pardon?
Is there a sidewalk if that's on Paul Road or on the other road?
No.
No sidewalk?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Anybody in the audience come forward and speak on this behalf? No? closing the public session. So it's left to us to make a decision.
I think I would favor a motion with the wording that she has to demonstrate in writing, verifying that the fence will not encroach within 3 feet of the property line. If it does, then
She has to move it.
she has to move it, yeah.
Understand?
Yes.
That's
So-
going to be put in the motion. Go ahead.
I'd second that motion.
All right, so I'm going to make that motion
Good.
official.
And we got a motion and a second. Danielle, roll call, please, on this application.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Russell? Yes. Ms. Bradley? Yes. Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes, you got your fence. But we need proof, all right? Of the
Well,
3 feet.
yeah, yeah. Work with the zoning officer. He can tell you what you need.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day. Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
Safe and healthy.
Okay, next application
Is
is Joseph Meyer.
variance.
6-foot fence?
No,
Accessory building.
pole barn.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you raise your right hand. Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You kindly give us your full name, spell your last, your address, please, and then through the chairman, tell us why you're here.
My name is Joseph Mayer, M-A-E-R. I live at 802 Cassville Road in Jackson. I have, a friend of mine gave me a pole barn, it's 30 feet by 40 feet. And when you look at my plans, the house is shaped on, it's a little odd the way they put the house. The house is more towards the side. But when I used to speak with Jeff, I understand finally when they say the front yard, but the front yard's 174 feet back. That's how far the pole barn's going to be. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to put it, but it's going to be approximately 10 feet, if I'm not mistaken. The architect sent them, I made him do it, so I know what it is. The architect sent it. And I think it's 10 feet in front of like the way the house is angled, but it's 174 feet off the road.
And there's nowhere else you can put this pole barn?
It's actually going in the front because I'll pull cars in there for my own personal cars, and plus with the lawnmower and stuff like that.
What else are you going to be putting in this barn, this pole barn?
And just work out of it, like, doing stuff around the house, nothing that's major in there.
You going to bring electricity or gas or anything else?
I might bring electricity, yes.
You have to let them know that.
Right. I didn't get that far yet.
Anyways, just for general storage, personal storage.
Right.
No
I have
commer-
2-car garage, but to be honest with you, it's so small and they got in the center of it, they got this, I guess it's holds it up. And it's hard to open up the doors and stuff. Plus, it's more convenient to have the open space.
No commercial use?
No, not at all.
Is there a loft of any sort?
No,
Okay. You understand, apologize, you're not going to use it for a separate meeting house or anything?
no, absolutely not. No.
What's the floor going to be?
Right now, it's just regular stone. If I make it, I'm just going to put stone down there. I mean, if I could put tar or something, I might, I don't know. I didn't even get, like I said, I didn't get that far. We just got to the pole barn.
You're going to make it aesthetically matching your home?
It's actually aluminum. It's already finished. The barn itself it's a prefab. It's already done. There's nothing for me to do to it.
What
It's gonna
color is
withstand the
It's
wind?
tan.
Jeff?
No, as far as withstand any, it's going to have to go through the construction department for what they require. But did you say the building's up?
No.
Okay, so I'm good.
Any other questions from board members?
Through the chair, a couple questions, if I may. Why did you pick this specific location on your property to put this structure?
Because it's actually not far from when you pull in. You wouldn't drive all the way to the back to park your car. It's right across, there's a 2-car garage there. And right across from it, it's probably about 30 feet away from the garages. It fits perfect right in there.
How much property do you own over there?
4 acres.
So, based on your description.
There's all
what-
trees in the
Your
back.
hardship for putting it there is what specifically?
It's like the best spot to put it because there's trees in the back. you know, and you don't want to put it next to the house on the other side of the property because then it would be too
How about
close.
to the rear of your property? What's,
There's all trees and stuff back there.
is there not though, don't you have a separate driveway that goes back there? Is it clearing in the back?
Yeah, I made something back there, but it's not, I mean, I don't want to park a car all the way in the back if it's snowing or raining. I wouldn't want to park all the way in the back. I'd want to go right there and just walk right to the front.
So you're proposing,
It's 30 feet away from my entrance, actually.
but how far away is it from your side property line?
50,
50?
yeah, 50 feet.
I thought it was much closer than that.
No, the architect did the actual drawings and stuff. It's on there. He placed it. He gave it to Jeff. We went over that about 20 times. Jeff wanted to kill me. He didn't. I'm here though. I'm alive. But he wanted to kill me. I could tell.
You also, in that location, there's a shed behind the proposed location.
Yeah,
How
there's been sheds that were there. The only thing I put, they have a gazebo that I put in there, which is off of the property, you know, away from that too.
So per the sketch, you're proposing it to be 50 feet from the side property and
Right.
20 feet,
I think
get this
30
correct.
feet from the house.
I'm sorry?
I think it's 30 feet from the house, right, Jeff? I think we were.
And for clarification of violation, the fact that the structure is in the front yard, being considered the frontmost portion of the house, the main structure?
Correct. It's forward of the house. The house setback is somewhere around 100 and, well, the house is 177 and change. The
100 and what and change? I'm sorry.
171, and then the proposed building is being proposed at 123 feet from the front. So it does encroach forward of the building, of the house, rather.
40 some odd feet.
I think it's 10 feet it comes out to be past it because it's going to be in the back. I think it's just 10 feet into the front of the yard. Is that right, Jeff? I think we were.
Well, according to the sketch,
The architect I know sent it to you, so it was there to scale.
according to the sketch, it's showing 123 feet from the front yard property line, where the house is 171 feet. So it's forward of the dwelling.
You may be adding the size of the actual pole barn for your differential, but we have to go by the board has to look at the front of each unit, so to speak, the pole barn and the house. Your house is 123 feet from the front property line, and this, is 171 feet from the front property line, and you're proposing the pole barn to be situate 123 feet. That's what the information shows.
I don't think it's 50 feet in the front. It's not 50 feet up in the front there.
So here's the thing. We'll make it through the chairman. How far back can you push it?
I
Beyond
can't put it back no
123
more.
feet?
It
Huh?
don't fit no more.
Well, then you stuck with what we're
Yeah, well,
reading.
that's where Jeff told me to put it, but I had to make sure. I didn't know
No,
exactly.
hold on. I didn't tell you to,
Well, you said if I had to go for a variance, this is where I would have to put it. And
No.
It's got to be 50 feet. You told
no,
me
what I
from the
told you
side.
is if it's forward of the house, it requires a variance.
Right, and that's why we're here.
Okay.
No, but I'm saying I couldn't turn it the other way around because then I wouldn't have had the 50 feet from the side. That was the problem. So I had to do it, move it back and then bring it out to the front.
Right, so I suppose the concession was that the only variance is the front is being forward of the house. He's maintaining a 50-foot side yard setback, which is compliant.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, Carl, but I'm just trying to grasp your hardship again. Could you just go over that one more time for me? Why, what is your hardship in this case? You have 4 acres. You're proposing to put it in your front yard.
Well, it's supposed to be a garage for us to park our cars into it. I mean, I wouldn't put it all the way in the back because then I'd walk all the way in the back. If it rains or snows, I have groceries, I would have to park in the back. And everything is right there in the front there. You know, when I do my gardening, everything is there. All my garden stuff is right there. Everything is right there in the front.
I just want further explanation. Thank you.
Through the chair, please.
Yes.
Jeff, I don't have the diagram in front of me, and the testimony is unclear, but what I'm gathering is if he took the pole barn where he currently has it situated, proposed, and he simply moved it back, so that the front of the pole barn would be essentially equidistant with the front of his house, and he kept it outside of that, I guess it's a 50-yard setback, 50-foot setback on the side, he wouldn't need a variance. Does that sound about right?
Correct, as long as it's not closer than 10 feet to the house. But to answer your question, yes, if you pushed it back, he would not require a variance.
All right, so then my question to you, sir, is why can't you simply push the pole barn back so that the front of your pole barn is essentially the same distance back from the road as your house?
There's an existing shed there. I mean, what is it? Not a shed. It's like a barn. There's an existing that was there. It's
see the
10 feet
shed.
away from that as it is.
Excuse me?
It's 10 feet from there. There's one that's,
Well, before you start, if I may.
Go ahead.
So one of your arguments is that there's an existing structure.
right, there's one that was there.
Describe that structure.
It's, I guess it's a barn that they built. It was
Well,
there.
how big is it?
20 by 10 maybe?
What is it used for? Excuse me, I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yes.
I just put like wooden stuff inside of it. You know, I got tires. I use it as just to put stuff into it.
Is
That's
that
all it is.
would you consider that a major structure? 20 by 10?
It was existing there. I
That's not what
didn't.
I'm asking you.
Is it a major?
Is it, I mean, when you describe a barn, I'm thinking about a barn, I think the board is thinking about a barn. And then you describe to the board that it's 20 by 10, that's something very often the board would say, remove it, particularly if you're putting a 30 by 40,
Precisely.
a 30 by 40 pole barn in.
Precisely.
I don't-
Steve, I'm struggling, just as my fellow board member is, with the justification for putting your large pole barn in front of your house. As a general rule, pole barns like that in front of the house, it's not aesthetically pleasing. Rarely does it ever fit within the character of the neighborhood. And so we take a hard look at that, imagining that to be in front of the house. And it sounds like, sir, not to be rude, but it just sounds like it's being put there for convenience sake, where you do have a very viable alternative in terms of repositioning that pole barn so that you don't even need a variance. All you have to do is push it back a little bit, remove your shed, take your shed out of the equation, and you've solved the problem. I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing, and I think that's what one of my fellow board members were scratching at as well. So maybe I'm missing it. I don't understand your dire circumstances here, your hardship circumstances here to justify what you want to do with this pole barn in terms of placement so much, roughly 50 feet in front of your house out towards Castroville Road.
It's not 50 feet in front of.
By
my
virtue
house.
of the documents and
All right,
the
let me-
testimony of our professionals and what is
I'll
depicted.
tell you exactly what it is. I have it here. Hold on. I know they sent it to them. It's 50 feet off the property line, 50 feet, 21 feet off the shed, would be 14 feet off the house line in the front. 50 feet, 10 feet
So,
off.
Mr. Hill, while he's contemplating, what's a little bit?
50 feet offside property.
What's a little bit?
I think it's 14 feet off the house line.
So,
Yeah, the architect, like I said, he sent it to him,
Let's
so.
hear from Mr. Hill.
so we don't know is the real answer. All right. So all we know is what the distances on this survey plan were from the house corners perpendicular to the front lot line. We don't know the exact distance that the proposed pole barn would be from the front property line, nor do we know what the setback line off the front property line would be at that location either, because it's not dimensioned correctly on the survey. So, I would if we're going to estimate things, I would estimate that it's approximately 20 to 22 feet beyond the front of the house. So he would only have to move it back about 20 to 22 feet to make it conforming. That's what I would estimate, but I don't know the actual dimensions on here.
Wouldn't need the variance if you moved it back.
If it was moved back about 20 to 25 feet, he would not need a variance.
And just, on this sketch that was submitted, it sounds like the applicant was saying that his professional made some notes on this, on the plan. It does give a scale of 1 to 50 on the bottom of the drawing. If you want to try to scale it.
Would that 20 feet now infringe on the shed that's existing there? That 20 by, it would? There's no way of moving that shed a little bit?
The only thing I would have to do is really take it down, but it's been there. It's, you know, it's, like I said, we just put stuff that was in there, wood, tires, you know, it's like a junk shed. But it's pretty nice little size, but I can't put my lawnmower in there because of the height difference and there's no floor or nothing inside of it. And to be honest with you, it's too small for anything else besides junk, really. You know, we put a wheelbarrow in there, we put the shovels in there, you know, because it's dirty on the floor. You know, so whenever I do any kind of gardening, that's where I put all my stuff that's in there.
So I'm looking at an aerial photo off of Google Earth, which is within the last year. That's a shed that somebody bought and put there, correct? That's
I
not
think
something
they built it there.
they built it
I
there.
think it looked like they built it there. It was pretty, it's made out of 2x4s. There's no floor in it whatsoever, so I don't think you'd be able to transport that with no floor.
It's
You know what I'm
just
saying?
dirt.
Yeah, it's just on dirt.
Can't you
Well-
roll it? There's no way of getting somebody to come in to move it. Would be, you can keep it and get it to roll away from the.
Yeah, but you can't pick it up. I already asked somebody, that's how I got the gazebo. You had to have the floor. You can't just move or else it'll fall right apart. But I really thought the architect gave you all the measurements because Donna asked him to fax everything in a full page because you guys needed.
You know, okay, I'm going to stop that because here's the bottom line. No disrespect again. I go through this sometimes, so this is for you, for the members of the public. This is a quasi judicial board at the end of the day. And as much as the board is attempting to try to help you at least place on the record the best proofs possible to support your request, we can't just walk it through. Ultimately, it's the same thing as if you had to go to a judge and you have to prove your case. And again, as much as I think the board is, and certainly our professionals are attempting to try to assist in placing on the record the best proofs that you could have to support why you want this, you can't just respectfully just go and say, well, the architect did this. Either you need the architect here.
Well, they
or you
asked me to do it.
Either you need the architect here, or, hang on, either you need the too much, excuse me. No, either you need the architect here, or you have to be assured of your, the plan. So quite frankly, it sounds to me, the board has done this before. I would recommend to you to ask the matter to be carried to the, it doesn't seem like it would be a lot at first to that January meeting.
I don't understand, to do what?
You've heard a number of the questions that the board has asked. You would be well advised respectfully to at least have answers to those
I
questions.
did. I have you the answers. What I actually said to you was what's on there. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just
Okay,
trying to explain
it's
to you.
your choice.
They asked me to have the architect put it on paper. And that's why I paid the architect to put it on paper and it gave it to them. So I don't know why they don't have it. They said that they had it. So I don't know why you don't have it.
We
The
have
architect put it on scale.
we have what your architect provided.
On scale. correct?
However, it looks like it says 1 inch equals 50, correct?
Right, it sounds.
However, and that's why when the board asked how far beyond the front of the house your garage is proposed to encroach, that is not detailed on this sketch. What is detailed, so I would estimate that it's about half of your structure, which would be about 20 to 25 feet.
We have 14 feet off the house line on the front.
No. We're talking off the front of your house. If you were
14
to
feet
draw a
off the front
straight
line.
line, if you were to draw a straight line along the front of your house, this garage appears that it encroaches 25 feet beyond that.
He told me 14.
I don't
That's what
see
I have.
14 anywhere on here. That's the problem. I see a 20, I see a 25 foot. I see
Can I
a
look at
scale.
what you're looking at? I don't know if it's up there.
Sure.
I just want to know what you're looking
Here's the front of your house, right?
at. Right.
Here's the line if you extrapolate it, and this is what your architect wrote, 25 feet. There's no 14 feet anywhere.
How far forward the building is.
Right.
Measure it out to the road.
So it's this part here.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was 14 feet according to them.
Just move it back so it's in front of you.
Is this on the
You don't need
record or
it.
not? So we're doing-
Move it.
We're off
Just
the
move it.
record, are we not? Yeah.
Get rid of it. What's it gonna cost? What is that? Well, that's not a hardship. So you gotta tell them that. So you either run the risk of not getting approved for this, or you run the risk, or you say, you know what? Bite the bullet, get rid of this shed, move this back to where it needs to be, and you walk out of here with a permit.
Yes, back on the record, please.
You have anything else to add?
Well, the only thing, I mean, I don't want to say anything, but the only thing that made me want to do that and look at it is because my neighbor up the block, three doors up the block, he's got the same pole barn right there. And his is only 75 feet off the line, which I already went with Jeff, but he's even with his property line. So he's 75 feet off the main road. I'm going to be 100 and something, 135 feet.
No, go ahead.
All right, so, just for the record, it sounds to me, members of the board, should you be so inclined, after hearing the testimony and obviously the public as well, that perhaps the applicant may be better and not seek what they call a C1 variance, but seek what you all know as a C2 variance, and simply, I'm really summarizing, in my opinion, I'm summarizing his argument. Again, you all are each able to hear or not hear what you did hear, which is that his argument is, look, I recognize I have a 4-acre parcel. It's significantly wooded in the back. The placement of the home, I am significantly though. What is the front minimum front yard setback there, if you know?
Offhand, I can't tell you for sure. It's a R3 zone, or a front yard setback would be either 60 or 80 feet.
All right, so let's use 80 just for this discussion. Let's presume conservatively that the required setback is 80 feet. He's more than double that. So given the existing placement of the house, the existing amenities, the way the drive is situate off of Cassville Road, the best location, in his opinion, for this pole barn, particularly since by not turning it, he is reserved the side yard setback, is the location as requested and as articulated. Therefore, he doesn't have to show hardship. It's a C2 variance.
Right.
Okay, any other questions from board members? I'll open this up to the public. Anybody coming forward, closing public session?
Okay. You close the public?
Yeah.
Anything else in deliberation?
Go ahead, open. Go ahead, deliberations.
Well, based on council's assessment of the situation, moving this to a C2, therefore taking away the need of a hardship, and given the description as provided in the testimony, where the structure will be in fact 50 feet away from the side property, and I don't have notes as to how far back from the street, I think.
Well, from his front yard, it would be 123 feet.
There, yeah, okay, so 123 feet, which is well in excess of what we believe the is an R3 zone is to be 80 feet. Again, emphasizing the fact we don't need a hardship here. I would be of the opinion to approve this application.
Any other discussion first?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Steve, I appreciate your comments and, but for Mr. Gertner's laying out an alternate explanation for the application, we have in the past required more of applicants in terms of presenting to us, show us on a picture, show us specific measurements. You hire an architect, you hire a surveyor, they bring it in, they lay it out in front of us so we can actually see it. All right, so granted, in this area, to a certain degree, the board and the professionals have bent over backwards to try to make the application for Mr. Mayor. And, I'm not inclined to, to punish him, so to speak, for not coming in properly prepared as other members. We have made them go back and do it. But nonetheless, I appreciate where you're going, and I think I can get on board with that as well.
Anybody else care to speak or make a motion? I need a motion.
My motion is to approve this application based on the fact that it'll be a C2 variance, and that it will be, the specifics, but it should be at least 123 feet back from the front yard, 50 feet from the side yard, and I believe the requirement's 10 feet from the main structure.
Yes.
So under those stipulations, I move to approve this application.
Second? Do you have a second? Second. You got a second? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Russell? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes. All right, you have your, wrap.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Enjoy your home.
Okay,
Enjoy your garage.
I'm gonna try. What is, I'm new to this, so like, what is the next
That's
thing?
okay. Take it, go, have a good holiday. You'll deal with the town, trust me.
Enjoy. Welcome to Jackson. Okay. Next one, the application is David Klein. Come on up. Tell us what you'd like to do, and we'll swear you in first.
Mr. Klein, kindly raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, can you make sure you speak into the mic? Appreciate it. Can you give us your full name, spell your last, your address, and then through the chairman, tell us what you want to do?
David Klein, 25 Imperial Place, Jackson, New Jersey. My last name is spelled Klein.
Continue, David. Tell us what you want to do.
Yes, so I'd like to build my deck. My setback for the deck is 30 feet, which would allow me from the porch.
Sir, I'm sorry, just get into that microphone a little
Sorry.
bit more.
The setback from my property from behind is 30 feet, which would allow me from the porch door a 5.5-foot deck. And I'd like to extend that to a 20-foot setback in order to be able to build out.
I'm sorry, just describe that one more time. You want to, by code, you can only come out 5 feet from the house? but you wanna go
5.5
20.
feet from the house. And I'd like to go to 15 feet from the house, which would make it a 20-foot setback.
So may I, Mr. Chairman, again? Give us the dimensions of the deck
The
as
future-
proposed.
The proposal would be 15.5 by 40, and the other side would be about 1920, going over the basement steps.
Okay. Huh?
Page 2 of the packet clearly shows in orange
Yep.
what's being proposed. Does everyone have that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would
Because
be-
unfortunately, it's not coming off the house and staying parallel to the house. When you get to, on this drawing, the left side, or if you were standing in the street, the right side, it comes around the side of the house. So the dimensions are what's shown on here. It would appear that the existing rear yard setback requirement is 30 feet. The existing rear yard setback to the existing house, to the bow window, is 35.5 feet. He's proposing to come out from the base of the house, not the bay window, the base of the house, 17.8 feet. Then the deck will be 41 foot long. Then it'll be 20.5 feet wide. And then it'll connect back to the house. The arithmetic would tell us that the proposed rear yard setback would be somewhere around 17.5 feet. That's what the arithmetic would tell us. So where 30 feet is required, it would appear that he's coming out about 12 feet. So he'd be left with about 17.5 feet. I don't want him to sort of guess or give you a number, and then someone does the as-built and it's wrong. So if he says, oh, it's about 20 feet, it's about 17.5 feet.
Thank you for jumping in.
Can,
Why do you need this deck the way it's structured? Tell us why. What's the problem?
I'd like to go out on the, I'd like to have just a larger deck coming out, more than 5 feet, 5.5 feet.
Is there a hardship? What is the hardship?
My other option would be just making steps down, but in that case, I would have trouble with little kids falling down the steps if I want to let them outside play.
All right, so again, I saw the people quizzing you. When you say steps down, is this deck proposed to be elevated?
It's an elevated deck.
How high?
It's a little crooked. It's from the house. It's probably around roughly around 3 feet.
3 feet high,
4
Yeah.
feet high.
4 feet? 4 feet?
Possibly could be. I'm not sure. 3, 4.
And when you're
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the information on page 2, where the deck is outlined in orange, clearly shows that the existing finished floor of the house is at 104.5. Sir, you're proposing this deck to be level with the ground floor in your house, correct?
Yes.
There are no steps out of the house to get on the deck?
No.
Okay. So the deck's going to be at elevation 104.5. The outside grade of the house is 100.6 or 101. You can see those two spot elevations at the side of the house. So it'll be about 4 feet. If you look at the corner closest to the rear corner of the property, on the drawing, it would be the bottom left of the drawing. It would appear that the elevation, the existing contour there is around 99.5 or 100. So at its greatest elevation change, it'd be about 5 feet. But generally speaking, it looks like it's about 3 or 3.5 feet. So it's even with the house, and the house is not quite a walkout, but it's recessed. There's open block, there's an open portion of the building, about 3.5 foot down from the finished floor of the house.
And when you're is it true that, isn't it true that when you're testifying that you want more than 5 feet, you're talking about 5 feet generally from where that bow window is?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 5 feet out going into the setback.
The reason I asked that, and again, I stand to be corrected, is nowhere on the plan shows this 5 foot measurement. In fact, at the one little corner of the bow, it's 17.8 feet from that corner out.
Right,
But it's
because
roughly 5 feet from the furthest out of the bow.
Right, so the picture that was on before had that little bow coming out at 2.8 feet. So I estimated the drawing to be about plus 2.8 feet of whatever it says.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I need clarification on the exhibit. Pages 2 and 3 of 6. If we can go to those slides, what are they? What is that? What is that?
Yeah, I was
Yeah, I was
looking
gonna
at
ask
them.
that too.
I was looking at
It
them.
looks
I
like
s-
it's a cabinet.
I don't know, I
This
did
looks like
not submit
cabinetry.
that.
You don't know how it got in there?
No, sorry.
So page 3 is also, it looks like cabinetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it has your name on it too. It has the Klein, it
It's
has
upside
Klein
down, but
25
it's-
Imperial. You're not proposing to install a kitchen on your rear deck, are you?
I'll ask her.
You'll have-
The answer is no, you're not.
He's overruling.
And she's not getting these cabinets either.
All right, so
keep to where we're at.
so for the record, the pages 2 and 3 of 6 are not a part of this application? Is that safe?
Correct.
Thank you. Through the chair, in your proposal to the deck, do you propose to have any stairs coming off the deck toward the rear property onto the rear yard?
Yes, in the sign in the side, within the setback limits.
So that wasn't clear to me, I'm sorry.
I actually sent a updated,
But where within, off the bay window side or off the,
right here.
oh, so you have steps that over by the bay window coming into the
Yes.
property? So any other steps on the other side of the deck you propose?
No.
Just that one area?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
I'm sorry.
You got another one?
Yeah, I'm sorry, through the chair. So I understand correctly, I'm looking at the survey. You have an elevation problem in your backyard. Your backyard basically slopes away from the house?
Yes.
Fairly
For
severely,
that
correct?
drain over there at the corner.
Fairly severely?
Yes.
So it's, would you say the property's limited in its use for flat surface
Yes.
and use in that vein? Okay,
Correct.
thank you. That's, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
That would have been your hardship, you understand? Paul, any questions? Anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience care to? I want to open to the public, closing public session. Okay, Mr. Hill, anything that you want to add? Ernie?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's up to us, all right? We gotta,
Just for clarification to the board, I just want to clarify, we're here because the deck is in encroachment of the rear setback, is that correct? And we're in violation of roughly 13 feet? Or I thought it was, oh, okay. So it's roughly about 13 feet. We're encroaching in that setback, correct? Is that the board's understanding? Okay. I'll wait to hear from other board members.
I'm actually, I guess I did the numbers wrong, but I'm actually only asking for 10.
what?
I might have done the number, no?
If you make it 10, that's what it's going to be. You're going to lose 7 foot of deck.
See? Trying to help you. All right, Carl, you want to make a closing statement? No. What's your feeling? Okay.
So,
He was about
wait.
to press the button.
We've,
So I would, if the board, when the board deliberates, just to clarify numbers,
Please.
they're looking, he's looking for the deck to be 15 feet off the side yard setback. That does not require a variance. He's looking for the deck to be 17.5 feet off the rear yard, which does require a variance. The steps will not require a variance as well, or do not.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at. You have a question?
No, but more of a deliberation.
Okay,
So,
good.
given the fact that given the fact that the yard slopes down, I can understand the use for the deck. I'm just concerned, if maybe you can explain a little to me, why do we have the 30-foot minimum, just so I understand?
Well, that would be a question.
I mean, I'm sorry, Evan, why would we have it, what is the purpose of the 30-foot minimum, just so I understand?
The 30 foot's the setback requirement in that zone for a deck.
It's coming to the Board of Adjustments to adjust that.
All right.
All right, any more deliberations? I need a motion.
I'd like to put forth a motion that, to approve the application as stated and as per the testimony, a deck will be 15 feet off the side yard. I'm not going to get this one right. And approximately 17 and a half from the backyard setback? From the rear, thank you, from the rear property line. I think that's all I need to do to
And that you find that the deck, the size that it's requested is not offensive to the zone plan or the zoning.
As per the attorney's eloquent addition, I will put that to my amendment.
I need a second. We got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Russell? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes, you have your deck
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
and your cabinets for your wife.
No cabinets.
Is that part of it?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
All right, who's next? Let's see. Where's my glasses? Rachel and Marcia.
Davis.
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 Ms. Davis, how are you?
Good.
Can you, thank you for doing that. Kindly raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Can you kindly give us, you got to speak up.
Okay, sure.
If you can kindly give us your full name, spell your last, your address, please, and again, through the chairman, tell us why you're here.
Okay, Rachel Davis, last name Davis, Davis, 18 Short Hills Boulevard. And we are asking to put up a fence around our property for the safety of our
I'm
children.
sorry, just get a little bit close to that microphone. I'm sorry.
You hear me now? Okay,
Yeah, yell.
You know,
Okay.
if it's easier for you, you may want to, and maybe Jeff, you can help. If you can turn the lectern, just that'll help her get a
Get
little
closer
closer
to
to the.
okay. You hear me?
Yes, much better,
Okay.
thank you.
So we're asking to put up a fence around our property for the safety of our children.
How high is the fence?
6-foot vinyl.
What else are you asking?
So a swing set and a shed.
A shed and a swing set.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
Okay, so we do have a sketch that was prepared and submitted as part of the application package. The lot is on, the lot's a corner lot. It fronts along Short Hills Boulevard, and then in Sheldon Drive. The driveway itself is off of Sheldon Drive. They're proposing to put the fence, what appears to be from the side of the house along their existing driveway, and then along the property line, along Sheldon Drive to the east, and then wrapping around the side yard to the north. It's unclear from this plan, though, how far the fence is going to be located off the property line. Can you give any kind of indication as to that?
So there's no sidewalk there. We don't know how, whatever we're allowed to do. As much as we could give to our kids, that's what we want to give.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you had said, so do it slowly.
There's no sidewalk on the side of Sheldon. So we would like to go as close to the curb as we're allowed to.
How close can they get to the curb?
The roadway's not on here. The bottom line is that you can't go beyond your property line. So if the property line's 20 feet from the road, that's how far you have to go. Your fence company, when they install this, is going to have to determine where your property line actually is, and they can't go any closer to the road than that if the board says you can put the fence on the property line. But your sketch also shows that you're going to be putting some privacy trees along the fence. It says privacy trees along fence.
So the lady that helped me do it, she said, throw everything in. I forgot about the privacy trees because we don't plan on doing that till down the line.
Is they going to be on the street side or the inside of the?
No, inside our property, inside the fence.
Okay,
yeah.
then that's not part of the variance application then. However, the shed would be part of the variance application. Swing set? Okay. The shed and the swing set are both considered accessory structures, so they would require variance relief as well for the front yard. How far off of typically a shed is 3 feet off of a fence minimum. That way you can get a mower back there, like a push mower. But we're not working with any dimensions off of property lines. I think at this point, she's asking the board to entertain the fence on the property line. Therefore, the shed and the swing set would be 3 feet off the property line.
All right, with the shed, are you going to be putting out electricity, or gas, or heat, anything going out there?
Not now, no.
What is the plans for the shed? What are you going to do with the shed?
To store toys, lawnmowers, things, storage.
How large of a shed are you predicting?
We were thinking 12 by 24.
12 by 24? Has that been indicated in the application?
When I denied this back in September, I only denied it for the fence. Subsequently, the shed was added and no size of the shed was offered to me. That's why we're hashing it out now. What was the size? What was the proposed size?
12 by 24? 12 by 24.
That's a big shed. So that's up to the board, of course.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Yeah. Ms. Davis, the diagram on the screen is pretty rough to read, but I have a better one in front of me. And as I can now make a comparison a little bit, and I see that you've got the shed placed very close to where you want to put the fence up, and it looks like you've got the swing set very close to where you want to put the fence up, but you have that entire vacant area in your backyard behind your wood deck. Why not put the shed and the swing set in the backyard?
So a big portion of it is trees. A lot of the backyard is just trees. And then we wanted to leave space for a pool one day.
Okay.
Cool. All right, that makes sense.
When you say trees, if you can help us out, do you know about where the tree line begins or where it starts to get heavily wooded with trees in your backyard? Is there any way that you can describe that by looking at that diagram?
So it's all the way from the back till somewhere there.
About halfway?
Yeah. Like you have a nice space for running around between the deck and the trees.
Okay, thank you.
Ernie, jump in.
My comment may not be helpful. At some point, ma'am, you have to give this to someone to build, okay? We have to write up a resolution that says you're asking for relief to do something in this location, this far off a line. This doesn't have any dimensions. So quite frankly, our concern is you're going to give this to a contractor. Contractor's going to go out there, and whether you give him the resolution that you're going to get or this document, he builds it in the wrong spot, you're coming right back here. So my concern to the board is, what's someone going to build? We don't know where it is. So unless you agree that we're going to build the fence on the property line, which appears to be from this document 50 feet to the right of your house and along that property line, and that the shed and the fence are going to be located 3 feet inside of that. We're going to put those words in a resolution. If the guy goes out and puts them in the wrong spot, you're coming back here. And then you're going to have to go get a new survey that shows where it was built wrong, and someone's going to have to dimension it so it's correct. So normally the board would get that information so that they can make an informed decision. This is barely, respectfully, this is barely a sketch. Okay? It makes it difficult for your contractor to build it correctly out in the field. It's tough enough that the board's giving you the courtesy of trying to work with you and saying, here's where it's going to go. But please be forewarned. If your contractor goes out and says, well, the woods was there and this was here and I put it there, you're coming back here and you're going to do this a second time. And that's not free. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Also, the other issue is she wants to put the fence on the property line. What is your positive and negative thoughts for the board?
So there's a house directly across the street with a 6-foot-high fence that looks like it's located along the property line. On that side of the road, there's a sidewalk. On the applicant's side of the road, there is no sidewalk. That fence is probably about 10 feet, I'm approximating here, about 10 feet off of the edge of pavement, so I would think it would be consistent on this side as well. If she were to put the fence along the property line here, there are no line of sight issues. There's still approximately 8 to 10 feet between the fence and the edge of pavement, so it's not right along the roadway. And then in the back left corner of her property, her neighbor has a fence there, so they share a common corner. However, the fence would need to go through the woods. Are you proposing to clear any of the trees for the fence?
The fence guy that came to give us an estimate, he said he'll work around the trees,
Okay.
keeping it not on the neighbor's property, but in our property.
Okay, just understand, whatever contractor you use, he's going to have to install it as per the board's decision, right? Whether it's on the property line or a distance off the property line.
Yes, understood.
Good, thank you.
May I through the chair?
Yes.
Evan, with regards, you said sight lines, how about her own driveway?
No, if the fence is 10 feet off of the edge of pavement, that's plenty of room for a vehicle to have a line of sight beyond the fence corner. I'm not concerned about that. We've approved them here as low as 8, I believe, in more dense residential areas.
Did you understand everything that they're saying?
I think so.
And what kind of fence you're gonna use? Is it gonna be chain link? What kind of fence you think?
White vinyl.
Huh?
White vinyl.
White vinyl.
I'm sorry, through the chair, was your testimony on the shed that, do you intend on supplying any utilities, gas, electric,
No,
water?
no, just for storage.
I didn't recall. Thank you.
So I think everything's been cleared. Any other questions from board members? I'll open it to the public. Anybody in the public that care to come forward, talk anything positive? I'm closing public session on this matter. Okay, so it's left to us, based on what we've heard. We have to come up with some dialogue. So you have any back and forth?
Through the chair, my initial thoughts on this is that we really don't have enough here. We're lacking any type of dimensions. We don't know what the setbacks are from the property line. Well, I'll ask Jeff. Jeff, what are the setbacks required in this zone, I take it's an R3 or R2?
Well, looking at the survey, let's backtrack first. It's a R3 zone. We can use R1 standards because it was once R1. The setback line that's shown on the plan does show a 40-foot setback. The distance from the property line to the house does show 50 feet. So there are numbers that can be worked with. But there are no setbacks for a fence. It's just provided that it doesn't, in this case, doesn't go forward of the house. That's why they're here. It's not because of the setback.
They're here because it's a corner lot.
Correct, okay.
So I think as the board deliberates with the applicant, I'm going to summarize because I think we're going back to now, what are you deliberating? The applicant's seeking to build a 6-foot-high fence in the front yard, which is along Sheldon Drive, along the property along her driveway to the property line along Sheldon Drive, along that property line along Sheldon Drive, and then along her property line away from Sheldon Drive. So the shed and the swing set, I believe the applicant agreed to position them a minimum of 3 feet from the property line.
Or from the fence line.
The fence line and the property line is going to be one and the same here. All
But do we not need a mowing space between the fence and the shed? I thought that was the testimony was 3 feet.
right, okay. The fence will be located along the property line. The shed and the swing set would be 3 feet off the property line.
Thank you.
Call, any questions?
Move to approve the application with the stipulations placed upon the record by Mr. Booth.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call on this application, please.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Russell? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes. Make sure you listen to what Ernie said to you. Everything that we're putting on this motion has got to be done accurately or we're coming back.
Understood.
God bless. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your fence.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? No, just kidding.
Can we take a break?
You can't take it.
Let's take a break. All right, we're gonna take a 15 minutes.
15?
No,
The heck you need 15 minutes for?
8:25, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
5-minute break.
That's better. 15? What do you got?
Have a lunch.
Gotta go to the bank.
I just wanted to see if I get a smile. Jesus, I can't, 20 minutes.
application before the Board of Adjustment. We have a use variance that was granted by this board, permitting the uses that we are requested. However, we're back here tonight for the purposes of minor subdivision, as well as site plan approval. As part of our subdivision application, will require a variance for lot width. And based upon my discussion with council, we both agree that that requires 5 votes. So in all respect to the board that's here, it is very unusual that an application before a Board of Adjustment is presented with only 5 members of the board present. So respectfully, we're requesting that we continue our hearing and that we hold off our traffic engineer until the next meeting, so we do not have a decision tonight. And hopefully by the time, the next board meeting, we have 7 members sitting, and hopefully all 7 vote in favor of it. If that's acceptable, I'd like to proceed on that basis, with that understanding.
Yeah, let's proceed. That's fine. We'll listen to your testimony.
Very good. All right, so. Sure, Stephen Leone, Leone. We had started our testimony with our architect, Mr. Richard Tokarski. I'd like to call him back. I assume he's still under oath.
He is, but I usually, just from tradition, like to swear everybody in. So if you could raise your right hand again. Sir, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And again, if you could kindly give us your full name, spell your last, and your affiliation. He has been qualified, so his credentials have been accepted.
Sure. It's Richard Tokarski, spelled Tokarski, with the firm of Tokarski Millman Architects, Wall, New Jersey. Licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
We've approved your.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. We left off going through the architectural exhibits, which I gave testimony to the floor plans and elevations. I did want to circle back and just return to Exhibit 9, which is the architectural exhibits. And if you could scroll down to Building B, which is the convenience store. Continue on. Back up 1, 2. Right there, please hold. So this is sheet A5 of Exhibit 9. This is the convenience store. And what I wanted to get on the record was that for a use variance, we were approved for a building 5,676 square feet. We had, on this exhibit, the floor plan is 5,000 square feet. We're going to, we'd like to correct the architecturals on the final submission and resolution compliance to have the 5,670 square feet building previously approved under the use variance.
Say again, Mr. Hill?
So it was 5,600 what?
5,676 square feet.
And what does that do to the parking layout around this building then?
I don't believe it affects it at all.
Well, you have a loading zone behind it. You have parking all around 3 sides, so something has to, something's going to change on the
On the
site.
civil engineer's original plan, it had shown the larger footprint, and we're going to basically revert back to that, and I'm sure the civil engineer will
I think
circle
we
back to
have,
this.
I think we have a surplus of parking, but Mr. Murphy can address that when he testifies.
So I had concluded the floor plans and elevation, so if I could move on to Exhibit 6. So Exhibit 6 is the architectural rendering. This is showing a three-dimensional rendering of Building A. So I wanted to review the exterior architectural design. Incorporates glass and aluminum storefronts, which are common for retail establishment, which allow light into the interior spaces. There's metal canopies shown on the exterior. Here, here, here. These metal canopies are used for sunshades to control solar heat gain, and they also add visual interest and shadow lines to help articulate the front facades. The facades of the building are very similar, so I'm going to speak about the exterior finishes on this particular rendering. They're a mixture of horizontal ribbed metal panels, wood look metal siding, stucco, and architectural fiber cement panels. This creates an upscale contemporary look that's prevalent in today's retail centers. So this being Building A, the next exhibit, Exhibit 7, if you could move forward. So this is Building B. You're viewing it from the point of the gas canopy, which here, looking at the convenience store. So here again, you have wood look metal siding along with architectural fiber cement panels, creating a interesting facade across the front. And moving on to Exhibit 8. So this is Building C, which is essentially a mirror image of the other building with the same architectural style and materials used throughout. So all the buildings complement one another.
Okay. Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, this concludes
Thank
my
you.
testimony.
Through the chair, just a couple items that may have been addressed at the last meeting. I've been made aware of these questions, as has Mr. Peters through the planning board. Can you talk about the provision of solar energy on the site itself, over canopies and the like, as well as electric charging stations?
So the electric charging stations I'll leave to my civil engineer associate. For solar, the buildings can be equipped for solar on the roofs.
Can they, will they? Would you agree, as part of resolution compliance, to work with our professionals to ensure that there are solar provisions on the building?
The applicant has indicated they will definitely provide charging stations for electric cars. However, they're not planning to use solar on the buildings.
So the electric charging stations, we would certainly need to know where they are on the site plans when they're finalized during resolution compliance. From a building perspective, these roofs are relatively small, and with the multi-tenant buildings, especially at restaurant uses, there tend to be a lot of roof penetrations in the roofs themselves, which you would have to, which would really limit and encumber how many panels you can put on these roofs. That's been my experience in designing rooftop solar over the years. So I wouldn't take any exception to that in this case. There is adequate for solar canopies, but that would always be subject to another site plan application in the future if they determine that they were feasible at the site.
That's their testimony. I mean, you can certainly discuss it further.
Okay, any further questions for this witness?
Through the chair, you're proposing signage for the individual tenants as proposed in the displays?
Yes, they'd all meet the zoning ordinance requirements for a multi-tenant building, and each tenant would have their individual sign and come in for their individual sign permits and approvals.
There's no desire for a variance for any signage at all?
No.
And your proposal for lighting will be on the building?
Yes, there's architectural lighting on the building as well as site lighting, which will be discussed by the civil engineer.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
As we looked at Exhibit 8 and Exhibit 7, just out of curiosity, and you may have testified, and I missed it, but are the dimensions as depicted in those drawings, are they accurate and consistent with what you're ultimately proposing? And what I mean by that is, I look at 8, for instance. He may have 7. Go back to 8. So I look at 8, and I see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars parked, the one over on the side. I see the parking spots. Is that all geometrically correct and consistent with the actual drawings of what we will ultimately see when construction is completed?
So as far as the buildings go, yes, the site should not be considered in the rendering. It's an architectural rendering depicting, there's some artistic license to present the buildings in its best light. It's not a documentation of the civil engineering and parking aspect of it.
Okay. But as to the buildings,
The buildings are
that's
correct.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Continue. You're done.
Thank you.
There's no further questions.
I don't know, any public, do you want to ask public?
Why don't we wait till the end of your presentation?
Okay,
Right?
all right,
Very good, thank you.
thank you. I'll call our next witness is Mr. Brian Murphy, the project engineer.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Murphy. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you kindly give us your full name, spell your last, and your affiliation, and your credentials, and just to cover it, since I happen to know you're also a licensed planner, maybe get
You got it.
qualified as both,
Sure.
just in case there's some questions that go back and forth.
You got it. Brian Murphy, Murphy, 1856 Route 9 in Toms River. I'm a principal at FWH Associates in Toms River. Licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been before this board and about 100 other boards throughout the state.
I accept your credentials.
Thank you very much.
We do. I see you're playing with a slide ruler. Was it something you were contemplating? You have the slide ruler there?
Okay, I have a ruler, not a scale, not a slide rule. I don't know if I could find a slide rule anymore.
Somewhere in the garage.
So Brian, has the minor subdivision plan and the major site plan been prepared under your supervision?
Yes, they have.
And are you familiar with the uses that this Board of Adjustment granted to the applicant?
Yes, I am.
And are the plans that are being reviewed, the site plan, consistent with those uses?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So please proceed to review the major site plan.
Sure. Could you go to Exhibit 1, please? I'll just touch on this quickly. I think Mr. Millens kind of went over it during his testimony. But the site's indicated in red. This is just a Google Earth aerial shot. So behind the site to the north is the Jackson Liberty High School. To the west it shows a house right now, but it's approved for an office building that'll be constructed. To the east is the Westgate community. That western boundary of the property is also the township boundary. And obviously to the south, we have Veterans Highway, and that is Cross Street that's coming up and teeing into it. Could you go to Exhibit 2, please? This is an aerial with the proposed project imposed on it. That green roof that you see in the back is the existing garage, the Clayton garage. The driveway that you see to the right, the concrete driveway that runs off, that is all existing. That's not being touched at all with this application. We're leaving that as is. It was constructed under a planning board approval for this project. So really what we're looking at is the front of the project, or the face of the project along West Veterans Boulevard. You're going to have a main boulevard. Right now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the intersection, but this intersection coming into the site actually comes in at kind of a severe angle. We've been in a lot of discussions with the county because they're redoing this entire intersection and almost all across street. So we're coordinating with them so that our intersection lines up with what they're doing on their side and everything works out well, and that this intersection will function well. So we're going to straighten out this intersection and come in. That'll run all the way back into the Clayton yard. We discussed last time we'll have a fence at that location. That'll be an automatic fence, key coded to come in. Coming out will most likely probably just be an eye because it would only be Clayton trucks that come out of there. But again, our main entrance is going to continue to be the main entrance for the yard. Is going to be that easternmost access drive. This is a lighted intersection. The light's going to be retimed and recalibrated for the whole new intersection. I have coming up basically what the intersection is going to be. I have the county plan for that and you know how that's going to all function. So to the east of what I'm going to call our entry boulevard is the convenience store, the gas station canopy, and then our other 16,000 square foot retail, office, and restaurant, basically a shopping center along the east side with the associated parking. That would be considered phase one, so that the entry boulevard and that everything east of it would be constructed with phase one. 166 parking stalls are required. 178 parking stalls are being provided with that side. Phase two would essentially be everything to the west of that entry boulevard, which is the building A, as we're calling it, and that's 12,800 square feet of, again, restaurant, retail, and office. Parking is 88 is required, 94 is provided. Again, we are a little over on parking. We're doing that on purpose so that we have some flexibility. If we wind up with a restaurant or something in there, we're not coming back to you for a variance or something along those lines. At least we have some flexibility for the additional parking, but I don't think it's so great that it's owners, that we're so far over parked. We're only about 10% over parked. Sewer and water will be provided by Jackson ME Way. There's been a pump station being built on that office building lot that we discussed. The force main was already installed by Clayton running up West Renstons Boulevard and to an existing manhole. That was all done in conjunction with Jackson ME Way. The sewer line is going to run through the site and then across the street to the corner lot. The reason that's happening is once the county does all this work, there's going to be a moratorium on that road. Clayton also owns that lot across the street. So we're just basically setting it up so in the future we can basically service that site without tearing up the brand new road and going through all that and disrupting traffic again. The garage in the rear, again, we're not looking to touch that at all. We're not changing that. It was all constructed in conformance with the site plan that was granted by the planning board. The proposed buildings, 254 total parking stalls are required and 273 are provided overall. But as I indicated, each phase functions on its own. It's not relying on the other phase for parking at all. So that end of it all works. Loading, all the loading is in the rear of the buildings. Let's see, can you go to Exhibit 3, please? This is just a color rendering of the site plan. So all the loading is across the rear of the buildings, except of course the gas tanks for the gas station would be in the front. So that'd be the only loading technically that would be in the front area. Everything else is behind the building. Stormwater, there's going to be 4 basins on site, underground recharge and the associated drainage piping. We meet all of our reductions. And all the stormwater will be owned and maintained by Clayton. With regard to signage, there's 2 monument signs at the front boulevard on either side of the boulevard coming in. I think it's warranted given the amount of traffic and the size of this intersection that's coming in. There's 2 small existing signs at the Clayton driveway to the east. And I mean, small, it literally has an address, and I think it says, the other one says something along Clayton garage, do not enter kind of thing. So they'll remain as well. And then the ultimate building signs, as Rick indicated, they'll conform with the ordinance, or they'd have to come back here, but the intent is to conform with the ordinance. And we would have a stanchion sign for the gas station with the prices, and as is typical, provided near the intersection. To guard the access, so as I indicated, access coming.
Mr. Murphy, if I may, through the chair?
Yes, sir.
With regard, well, a couple questions on the signage.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the question again. With regards to this, you can have double signs at the main entrance, correct?
Yep.
What's the proposed design? Are they going to be height requirement? Are they going to be height issues or
No,
size issues?
those are lower kind of monument signs at the entrance, and they're going to be on either side of the entrance.
Do they tend to be backlit? Or they be LED?
No, they'd be front lit, and then kind of landscaped around. It's going to be attractive kind of monument sign that wraps around on either sides of the entrance, so you can see it coming up Cross Street and also either direction along the frontage road.
Is that the same proposal for the gas price sign?
So the price sign is just going to be a pylon sign with the pricing on it.
You say pylon. Can you describe that better? I'm sorry.
Sure. Basically, it's a single pole that comes up and then has the price on
The
top.
height of that would be?
It would be conforming, probably 16 foot, something along those lines. Nothing.
And it won't, how far will it be for the intersection? Is that a problem with?
Nah, we'll be keeping you out of the intersection. The monument signs are more important to be closer to the intersection. The other ones, the other sign, you can see it's lit, they're typically changeable numbers, so they're usually pretty well visible along the frontage.
So, yeah, so with changeable copy signs, I'm assuming that's you use digital signs for the
Yes.
gas station pricing. That there is an ordinance requirement about those signs have to be a certain distance away from traffic lights if they contain red and green.
Yes.
Lettering, which most of them do, right?
Yeah,
Diesel will
most
be
of them
green,
do.
right? So I think you're going to need to either, if your testimony is that you're going to fully comply with that portion of the ordinance, then you may have to be 100 feet away from a traffic signal, right?
Okay.
If not, you're going to have to ask for a variance for it.
We won't be 100 feet away, that's for sure.
Okay. So but you're not in the position tonight to say exactly how far away you would be from there. So
I can set a distance at about 50 feet.
Or you'd have to come back at the next meeting and clarify that, right?
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll do that since we're coming back anyway.
And if I may, through the chair, I just want to follow up on an earlier testimony. I just want to clarify with the circulation with regards to Phase A. You're proposing the main entrance, but will you also be proposing that right-in only entrance?
Yes.
Okay, and then with Phase B, will that be a right out only or left? It will be,
So-
yeah, what was that proposed to be?
So that's an in and out on the west side.
Okay.
So that's a two-way.
Yes,
Yeah.
Frank, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, since we're talking about that, one of our comments was the phasing, and if you can provide not a decision, but testimony regarding when the roadway and intersection improvements would be put in prior to any of the COs being
Sure.
obtained for the site. And obviously, we'd like to see the improvements done before anything opens.
Sure.
So if you can talk about the phasing of that.
Yeah, so the improvements to the boulevard and the improvements along the frontage of Phase 1 would all have to be done prior to Phase 1, as part of Phase 1, essentially, to be constructed. We need all that for access into the site. Right now, you see this hatched center median kind of, that becomes a left turn lane to come into the site as well. So that's all set up with the county. It'll be a full left turn lane dedicated only coming into the site. Again, it's going to be controlled by the light as well. And that entrance to the west side, that would be constructed with Phase 2, and that's a left in or right in, right out only. No lefts out of it. And then the entrance or the other connection to the main boulevard would be constructed at that point.
Brian, there is a detention basin associated with the building on 403. 404 rather. That'll be part of your phase one as well, right?
Correct. Any drainage to Askies, there is some drainage in phase one or phase two area that would have to be constructed as part of phase one. You know, and obviously anything downstream, we have to construct, so that would be constructed.
Yes, Frank, go ahead.
You said something, I just want to clarify it. Will all the roadway improvements on East Veterans Highway be done at the same time with the county road?
Yes, yeah, we're not going to close down the road twice.
So in phase two, that frontage improvement will be done,
Yes.
correct? And I guess the curb cut into phase two. will be
Yeah,
done.
but it wouldn't go anywhere, yes.
That's, all right, I
Yeah.
just want to clarify that all the road improvements will be in place prior to any of the on-site buildings being occupied.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Jeff, I saw you bring up the mic. You all right? All right, you can continue with your presentation.
Thank you. Could you bring up Exhibit 5 just for a moment? So these are the county improvement plans. So you're going to have a through lane coming directly through into the site. You can see this still has the odd angle that it's at now. So we're going to basically straighten that out to line up perfectly with their intersection, so it comes straight across. Cross Street's being widened further away from the intersection, so that's going to give a lot more stacking. Right now, I'm sure we've all traveled it. It gets a little backed up there, so this will spread out that traffic to more lanes and give more room for stacking. And you're going to have a longer dedicated lane to turn right. So that'll allow you to basically, anyone going right won't have to wait now for the light to change to get over there when this is backed up. The red lines that you see on this are what's existing. So just giving you an idea how much it's being widened. You know, it's being widened quite a bit and pulled back much further from the intersection. So we'll have a dedicated lane straight into us, and then you'll still have the two lefts to go west on Veterans. You just go back to Exhibit 3 again, just for a moment. Thanks. With regard to variances, it was referenced in one of the review letters. There's an existing variance on the existing building toward the northeast within the Clayton Yard. That variance was granted by the planning board previously. And also there was reference to the buffers along the eastern boundary. Again, that variance was granted by the planning board for those buffers along here. So we have a fence along here, and we had some landscaping that we added as part of the approval for the garage site and the improvements to the garage site area. With regard to waivers, we have a waiver for loading and front yard setback. That's regard to the gas station. Technically, that's loading when we're filling the gas tanks in the front. As I indicated, all other loading is behind the buildings. Signage, more than one per street. We have two entrances and one for the gas, two of the existing at Clayton, and obviously the two on either side of the main boulevard entrance. So really, we have four entrances coming into the site and over 1,400 feet of frontage. I think that the additional signage is warranted out on the site. Landscaping on three sides of the trash enclosures. We're on two sides. The side facing the Clayton facility does not have it. The trash enclosures are in the back of the buildings, indicated in yellow on this plan. So basically, we're going to have landscaping on the sides, but not the rear, because that goes back into the Clayton facility, and there's going to be a fence there anyway. Shade trees are required to be planted on 40 to 50 foot intervals. Generally, we're complying with this. The problem we have is this entrance goes greater than that, so I can't get the 40-foot interval at that location. So everywhere else, I'm providing that. It's just the technicality of that location, and also up by the main entrance into the yard on the east side. Again, just because of the width of the driveway, I can't get that 40 to 50 foot. I'm 55, 60 feet in those locations in some spots. But the remainder of the site, I'm meeting where I can. I just physically can't get it there. And landscaping along the existing east entry drive to the residential adjacent, as I indicated before, this was all approved as part of the planning board approval for the industrial site, and it's all been installed. Exhibit 11, please. That's really the bulk of it for the site plan, and Exhibit 11 is has the minor subdivision, and I overlaid the development within that, so you can kind of see what we're doing. We're creating 3 lots. The first lot would encompass phase 1, which would be the boulevard and can you zoom out a little bit? Yeah, well, yeah, just hang there for a second. So I'll go to phase 2 while we're up in this area. So phase 2, as I indicated, is everything west of the boulevard. So you can see the dashed line here. That would be 1 lot. So phase 2 would be its own lot. Phase 1, again, would be its own lot and come down. If you could just scroll down a little bit to the bottom of the page. Thank you. And it runs basically along the boundary with the industrial site, and then the Clayton Yard, and then you can see it comes down right on the edge of the existing driveway and back out to the roadway. That would be the second lot for phase 1, and then the remainder lot, of course, would be for the Clayton Yard and the access into Clayton. We're going to have all cross-access easements and drainage easements throughout this. As part of the application we have for the minor, we do have a waiver for the driveway being 10 feet off the property line. As you can see, the driveway kind of winds in. The reason for this is it really kind of hides any view directly into the yard. It does it pretty well, actually. Technically, I could comply by trying to, doing an odd shape of the property line here. I think it's better to have, as an engineer and planner, I like straight lines. So rather than trying to bend the line around this, I think it makes more sense to just have the line and seek a waiver for just the small area here where we don't have the 10 feet. And again, it's only because the road's not straight. It kind of hides it back there. And we do have one variance for the Clayton lot. It's for lot width. 200 feet is required. We have 142.5. It's measured at the front setback, which is at 100. So it's roughly in this area. As you can see, we obviously won't have any development in this area. All development is, this line here is about 319 feet before you even really get into the main yard area. So really the purpose of the width is so that you're not trying to jam structures in the areas that they don't really belong. We're not going to be putting any structures in this area. Everything's back behind everything. So it's really only the driveway that's in this area. And I feel this, the variance can be granted without any impact to the zone plan or master plan. Again, it's kind of a technical variance. And it meets the purpose of the MLUL, provides a more attractive entrance into the drive, so in a desirable environment, so you don't see into the back storage yard. And so that's the benefits under MLUL. And as I indicated, I don't see any impact to the zone plan or master plan by granting that. And
What other waivers are you requesting?
I'm sorry, sir?
Waivers?
Yeah, the only waiver I was looking for as part of the subdivision was the 10-foot setback for the driveway. And again, it's only in that area. And then the other waivers that I indicated for the site plan. With regard to the RVV 102821 letter, review letter, I believe I addressed everything. I think Ernie will let me know if I didn't. With regard to Evan's letter of 103021, I guess the only comment I have is on page 5, item number 23. It's regarding access drives into the basins. There's one basin. If you bring up Exhibit 3 again, please. There's one small basin just on the west side of this entry drive. That's the only one that we're not providing a access drive into. The reason being it's more of almost a glorified swale. It's 18 inches deep. It's only 10 feet wide, so the backhoe can reach, if they need to, from the side, if they have to ever clear anything out of there. But the basins that are what we really think of as basins all have access drives and access into them. That's all I had in Evan's letter, unless he has other comments. For Mr. Miskovitz's letter of 101421, page 2, item 5, he asked for testimony regarding the medical use. There may be medical use here. Again, we're looking at, if there's smaller practices as we would anticipate, then the parking calculation, there's really no change. It's only if you're looking at 3 or more doctors in the same office, then the parking counts go up. So if they do wind up having that situation, we're going to have enough parking. So we're going to have to be able to prove that if it comes to that point.
I'm sorry, and that would be, you're open to either that being in phase 2 or phase A, rather?
Any of the phases, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
If Frank, you're happy with the amount of parking that is in this?
They have a little bit more, and I think there's some flexibility on the side, as Brian testified to. But as I understand it, and maybe we can put on the record, last meeting there's no tenants right now for any of the
That's
buildings.
correct.
So they'll have to come in for fit outs, and I guess at that time, if there's any particular requirements on parking or circulation, we can address them at that point, either at resolution compliance or when they come in for that particular building.
Yeah.
If it's a change from this.
Yeah. So we're trying to accommodate what could possibly be in here. Obviously, you can't figure out everything, but we're trying to have it so that we don't have to come back to you if for a certain tenant coming in or something along those lines.
What restaurant are you considering? Is it going to be a lot of seating? Is it going to be a fast food restaurant?
We're not considering a restaurant. I wanted to include some restaurant calculation in there, only because I'm anticipating there's going to be some kind of restaurant in here, whether it's a pizzeria or something along those lines. What it would be, I have no idea. Again, we don't have the tenants. No one's going to sign up this early in the game. But we like to have some flexibility in there and at least anticipate some restaurant in there to accommodate the party.
It would be sit down. It would be.
Yeah. We're
It's
not
not a drive-up.
No, we're not looking for a drive-through restaurant.
Through the chair, to that point, we've heard in other applications, the trend and the future trend, the public's demanding a drive-through effect. Are you?
We're not looking to have a drive-through here.
Okay, no, only because the market is changing and.
Yeah, we're not looking to go with drive-through. That creates other issues on sites, for sure, with stacking and those kind of things. So we're not looking to go that route.
Very good.
Sorry to interrupt. You want to continue?
No, that's fine. Anytime. And page 3 of his letter, item 14, with regard to air pumps, I would anticipate that they'd be on that south side, and we'll show where they are as part of the resolution compliance, and can coordinate that with Mr. Miskowitz.
Are they going to be in the front yard?
The air pumps would be either on the west side of there or on the south side of the building.
Yes, Carl.
A personal pet peeve. We're going to have to pay for the air, or is it free?
It's free. It's free at Quick Check.
It's free for you, Carl.
Yeah.
Good question.
You got a little levity from Carl.
And we agree to the rest of the items in his letter.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just want to clarify that you don't take exception to any other comments in the letter. Okay. I do, just for point of clarification, so I can make a note of it. What is the status of your DEP wetlands TA transition area waiver and general permit?
Yeah, we had a wetland on this, an LOI and approved as part of the industrial site when we came in for that building. That's since expired. We're into them. We've been into them for 5-6 months now. Just waiting.
Okay.
Yeah, pending. The DEP is slower than usual now.
And then this application will be subject to the somewhat recently adopted soil fill importation ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Is it your testimony that this application, the information that you submitted, meets the technical requirements of that ordinance at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so it would just be a matter of if site plan approval is granted, you would then go through the administrative process of paying the fees and so on at the time of zoning permit.
That's correct.
Okay. Are you filing the subdivision? You included a final plat. Are you filing by plat, or are you going to
I
do
would
it by
anticipate
deed?
by plat.
By plat, yeah.
Okay. Obviously, when you submit for resolution compliance, there were some comments on the technical comments we had on the plat, but we also like to see, the board attorney would like to see the language for cross-access easements and utility easements. and
Absolutely.
So on,
Yeah,
for on-site.
Yeah, the
utilities.
MUA is going to want all easements for them dedicated, and then we'll have cross-access easements for everything. So we don't want issues down the road
Okay.
either.
Just a global comment, the stormwater management system has been designed to infiltrate the building roofs, roof air runoff from the building roofs, but also infiltrate and detain and manage the stormwater runoff from all the other impervious cover in accordance with the Jackson Township ordinance and state DEP regulations. We didn't take any exception to that. We do have some comments on the report, just cleaning it up a little bit as part of resolution compliance. And there was one other, the owner's rep did indicate that all the on-site stormwater management facilities will be owned and maintained by the entity that controls the
Yes, and all.
project. Okay, thank you.
Ready?
Just one, the architect had indicated we're going back to a different size building, which is 600 or so square foot bigger.
Yes, thank you.
Did you indicate what direction it's getting bigger and whether or not there's any design waiver relief necessary from
I
the plan
did
that's
not,
been
I did
submitted?
not, but I had it in my notes, so thanks for bringing that up. Actually, you can actually see on this plan, the loading area in the back of the convenience store, visually, you can see it's substantially larger than the loading area behind the existing building. So we have the room to add on to the back of it. That's the only area we're going to add on to get the square footage.
Well,
And we'll
I
still
have
have
a-
sufficient loading.
I question your testimony. It's visually larger, but do we have any dimensions at this point?
Yes, our plans are to scale.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, the width is the same, won't change. Because otherwise that'd be pushing parking lanes and everything else. I'm not doing that. Yeah, we're just going to increase the depth of the building a little bit to get that square footage.
I'll go to Frank. Frank, with that in mind, is that proper circulation for the deliveries to come back and forth through the rear of the buildings, given the designs and the dimensions we've been given to date?
Well, let me answer part of the question. To get to that additional 675 square feet, roughly, that's on the plan, that building is 86 feet long, parallel to the loading area. So we would have to extend the building maybe another 6-7 feet to get that requirement. That would reduce the loading area slightly. There's no dimension I see right now on the loading plan. But we did ask that they provide a truck circulation plan, because with a convenience store, I'm sure you're going to get the larger wheelbase vehicle deliveries to demonstrate that they can get to the back there, or at least how they're going to circulate around the back. And that also goes for Building C in the back. So that, I think from my experience, the width of the pavement that's back there can accommodate it, but we just want to make sure that it can be there. Right? And again, because they don't have a particular tenant, that may be subject to a fit out. When they do have one, to come back to the board, there may be some tweaking on that. But number one, we do have adequate parking, in my mind, for the convenience store, the larger one. And there seems to be definitely enough room in the back for those large-based wheelbase vehicles come into the loading area.
So you're saying tractor trailers then can have access?
Well, they showed I believe, a fire vehicle being able to circulate throughout the site. We just asked for the large wheelbase vehicle, which is not much different from that. The only thing that was not shown is that we have a fuel delivery vehicle that would come to the gas station for fuel loading, that we asked for that to ensure that would happen. It appears that there's enough distance in there for that to happen, but that definitely would have to be shown on there because although the architectural plan shows pump islands, the survey plan doesn't. So you'd want to see the dimensions and make sure that all that is properly done. But that would be, I think, something specific at that point when they have a tenant for both. That maybe it should be a condition. I would suggest that as a condition that they come back in a particular plan for the gas station and convenience store. At that point.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, and as we indicated, we'll comply and provide them the turning templates for those.
And just for the record, you take no exception to the other comments.
No.
That's changing. If I may, just as a point of just for my own clarity, our comment number 16.1, if you look at that drawing on the exhibit, the far left side of the property, in phase 2, there's that existing little gravel bump out area that's between the road and the parking.
Yes.
And you show sidewalk kind of going across there.
Yes.
What is proposed in that area? Is that can be cut off, or that's still something that's up
That's
in the
been
air
a
to
point of
be?
contention with the county.
Okay.
But it's basically going to stay the way it is. We have different feelings than the county does, but the county controls it. I think it's kind of a useless little area. We wanted to actually get that vacated, and first the county agreed, and then the county had some issues with how it was originally created, and so they're not willing to vacate it now. It's a short story. So we're kind of stuck with what it is. It's going to be no man's land.
And so that, so let's articulate it to the professionals and the board. The board certainly, as part of proper planning and design, doesn't want it to be a no man's land, and you're spending, your proposal is to spend an awful lot of money, landscaping, et cetera, to make it presentable, and you're going to have that.
Well, it's off-site from our property.
But you control that property.
No.
Oh, it's
No.
it's the county.
No, it's the county's. It's not our property.
What would you like to see happen to it? I guess is my.
I would have liked to see it vacated, but they're not willing to do that. So that's all I can really do. I can't.
Will they allow us to landscape it at all?
The problem is that there's a lot of actually utilities because that was actually the old configuration of the road actually went that way at one point. And it's kind of a leftover from that. But there's utilities that run through there. So there's not a whole lot we can do with it, unfortunately, but that's really kind of where we're stuck.
Okay. Any other questions, professionals?
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of clarification, both Mr. Murphy and Mr. Leone, and I may have misunderstood or misheard or didn't listen properly. The only are any of the variances that you're seeking, were they part of and conditional, so to speak, of the granting of the use variance? Particularly, I'm talking about the lot width. That was not discussed specifically at.
No.
So I want to make it clear for your client, Mr. Leone, and that may change your testimony, particularly as to the light stanchion for the gas station. If that's the case, the variance that we had discussed is not a D variance requiring 5 votes. That also is part of the site. It would only require the majority of the board as it sits.
You mean the sign stanchion?
Yeah, he knows what
okay.
the sign for the gas.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, one of Mr. Murphy's points was we had previously discussed, oh, we have to come back, we'll get that clarified. If you chose instead to determine to finish all your testimony and present for a vote this evening, you'd be stuck with compliance on that point, but you'd be able to move forward with a vote. I just want to make that clear because we may
No,
have had
thank
a
you.
misunderstanding.
Well, are you done with your testimony?
I am.
Are you done with this witness question?
I'm going to want to ask Mr. Peters something, so it may still dovetail.
Sure.
Mr. Peters, as I'm looking at your October 28, 2021 report, I'm just looking for some clarification as to how it dovetails into Mr. Murphy's testimony when in subparagraph B on page 4, one of the items that you mark as a variance is minimum lot width. I would like an explanation as to how that applies and where, if you can. And then on page 5, the variance for minimum side yard setback on the accessory buildings. I'm just having a hard time connecting that to what the testimony is. Can you help me out with that a little bit?
I don't want to testify for the applicant, so I'll ask Mr. Murphy to again clarify what the condition is on the existing land and on the proposed subdivision.
So the existing building that's in the northeast corner that I'm pointing to on this exhibit, that building has been there for at least 60 years. That variance was granted, there's a side yard setback variance on that existing building. That variance was granted as part of the planning board approval for the garage that's there now in the back. So that was granted.
So if we can stop there for a second, that would be pre-existing and it was previously. So it's not as though, as we often have, someone built something and didn't have an approval for it. So because it wasn't specifically noted in any of the bulk charts on the map, we asked for the testimony. I take no exception that they do not need a variance because one was previously granted for the side yard setback for an accessory structure.
All right, so just so I understand your report, because I try to understand your report. So when you generally list a variance in your columns, that's an indicator to me that we would need testimony or some proof to support the
That was the
variance.
testimony that
And that's what Mr. Murphy just gave us. So he's now satisfied that requirement by virtue of the planning board having previously granted a variance on that issue.
And I would concur that the variance is not necessary for an accessory side yard setback for that building.
All right, so that's that one. What about the next one?
Bring up Exhibit 11, please. So the red lines that you see here are the proposed lot lines. So the lot width variance that we're looking for is right here. It's 100 feet off of the front, off the roadway, and it's only for this lot, which is the garage. So this finger that comes back, we're short on lot width at that front setback. As you can see, where the actual structures are, the lot width is, over 1,000 feet. But it's more of a technicality because that run that comes back is about 319 feet, that proposed property line. So the lot width would be measured at 100 feet back.
Which is the principal building setback line.
Exactly.
So because of how the municipality defines width, being measured at the principal building setback line, which is 100 feet back from the street right-of-way, there is a variance required. The applicant's testimony or proof is that where the buildings actually sit on the site, the width of the lot in that location is in excess of what is required by a large factor, which I don't take any exception to. This almost would be considered a flag lot. So there's a stem, and then if they were to measure the building setback from the flag portion of the lot, they would certainly have enough lot width. So from that perspective, I don't take any exception from a planning perspective. The board has to weigh the testimony and the explanation that Mr. Murphy gave. But in terms of, is it a self-created hardship? at a particular location, that they limited the frontage along there, could they fix it? Sure, they could. They could build less commercial, or they could grant themselves an easement to go onto the property and make it a lease line like you'd see in a strip mall that has retail on the back and a couple of pad sites for a bank and a McDonald's up front, and they just lease the area. So again, from my perspective, from a physical planning perspective, I don't take any exception to it, but the board has to weigh the evidence and testimony that was given and be satisfied with it.
So as I look at your report, for this particular issue, a variance is needed, and this is before us for the purpose of making a decision based upon the testimony that's been given.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, let me also add that the lot width here is 125 feet, lot frontage, rather, so that we exceed lot frontage on the road, but we do not exceed, we don't meet the lot width, which is measured at the building line, and that's why we need the variance. But as far as frontage on a highway, we comply with that. We exceed it.
So, Mr. Murphy, can you follow up on Mr. Peters' testimony related to, and I'm going to use a nice legal phrase, the machinations that you could go through to potentially avoid the variance, and why instead you chose arguably the simpler approach, even though it raises the need for the variance?
So we're roughly 60 feet shy, so I could shift this line to the west and have this line run up. And as Mr. Peters indicated, I could have a easement for parking and access, and the sidewalk easement all on the Clayton Yard site, and have a compliant lot. But I think that's a little more cumbersome. It's not as clean. I think it's cleaner to have, for the sake of this line being over slightly and keeping everything basically associated with phase one in the lot that's phase one. I think it's cleaner and makes better planning sense, especially considering really the purpose of the lot width is so that, you're not jamming in a building at that front setback line that doesn't really belong there, or overbuilding it within that lot width, which, again, where we're actually building our structures, we're probably a magnitude of 10 over what's required of lot width. But the technical requirement is at the front setback, which is 100 feet. So it's, again, 140 some odd feet wide instead of 200.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if the board pleases, we'll be glad to put the traffic engineer on and see if we can conclude this evening.
So let me clarify, if you're going to do that, then you will meet ordinance requirements related to the stanchion location of for the gas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, they have to come back. That's all Mr. Kennel, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you give us your full name, spell your last, your affiliation, and your credentials related to your traffic testimony?
Yes, again, Scott Kennel, Kennel. I'm with McDonough and Ray Associates located at 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan. I'm a principal with McDonough and Ray Associates. I have over 35 years of traffic and transportation planning experience. I've testified on over 1,000 applications, many times before this board, as well as the Jackson Township Planning Board. And I've also been,
As a
all right,
chairman.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Vidiello, I can tell you now, given what's occurred, that you will not be reached this evening. So as we had discussed previously, okay. Not because this is at least half an hour. It's going to be 10, 10:15. Sorry, but I should have realized that before you called it.
So, I'm sorry. Thank you for a moment. I'm sorry to interrupt your application.
It's my fault.
No, we appreciate the board taking a moment to let us know. If it would be possible to carry our application without further notice, we would appreciate that. I understand the first January date, some of our professionals, myself, I'm not available, but the second January date, I understand you're booked. So I think it would be the first February date.
Yeah, yes, and Mr. Chairman, as part of the issue was as well, given the having only 5 members, we've had a conversation. I have no objection so long as the zoning officers has no objection, having this being the first application on February 2nd? Okay. So with that, Mr. Chairman.
Second or third?
February 2nd.
Not third, okay. Second.
Wednesday, February 2nd.
Wednesday, okay, just want to make sure.
You're going to be the first application on that evening.
On the February 2nd,
On
which is
February
Wednesday.
2nd.
Okay.
So Highland Development Ventures preliminary final site plan 849 with a minor subdivision. That matter, which is number 7, at least on my agenda, will be carried to the February 2nd, 2022 meeting, a lot of twos, without the requirement of further notice, the applicant waiving time through February 28, 2022.
Yes, that's acceptable. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can continue with your presentation.
All right, thank you. My office updated the traffic impact study. As part of the use variance, we had submitted a traffic study dated March 25, 2020. And as a result of this application and a number of comments raised at the use variance hearing, I updated the traffic study, and the one submitted to the board is dated October 21, 2021. And the main adjustments to the traffic study dealt with, one, we conducted additional traffic counts on Veterans Highway at the maintenance yard because the board had asked us to review the traffic activity at that location and the operational characteristics. So we updated the traffic counts. Again, they were early December of 2020, and based on the applicant, the construction activity at that time was still pretty active, so there was a good representation of the traffic counts at the driveway at that time as what occurs throughout the year. There was also the request in conducting a traffic analysis to include a number of other developments in the area that had recently been approved or approved a couple of years ago. One of those included a office complex of approximately 67,000 square feet adjacent to the high school entrance. So we included that traffic. And then there's obviously the Liberty Commons development that was under construction and is basically completed now, waiting for tenants. So we included traffic from that development and reanalyzed the study locations along the site frontage. And basically taking those additional developments into consideration, the levels of service generally remain the same as what I had testified previously. And I guess most importantly, as it deals with the signalized intersection at Cross Street, the site would operate at a level of service D for both the morning and afternoon time periods, which is an acceptable level by Ocean County. And I did a supplemental analysis based on one of the comments based by Frank Miskovich that if the county improvements, that being the additional widening on Cross Street, are not in place, what would be the level of service? Because there's going to be a timing issue. I mean, we intend to do all our frontage improvements. The county themselves, their improvements are slated within the next 3 to 5 years. So they may come along after our frontage improvements are in place, and we would still end up with a level of service D at that intersection with basically with or without the county improvements. As far as the maintenance driveway access, the level of service that we calculated, that would operate a level of service B. B is in boy, so very good, very low delays, and operate fine. And I guess what needs to be recognized, that there were some improvements since we did our previous traffic study, where the county has repaved that section, and there's actually a dedicated left turn lane. It's a two-way left turn lane along there. So it creates a refuge area for left turning vehicles so that through traffic can conveniently bypass them. But we found that with the traffic counts or traffic activity from that driveway and the additional traffic from the other approved developments west of the site, as well as the traffic to be generated by the commercial portion of the site, that driveway would still operate at good levels of service. There was also the request at the use variance hearing, what impact do we have at the West Veterans Highway and Hope Chapel Road intersection? So my office conducted updated traffic counts at that location in September of 2021. I compared that, our 2021 counts, to the traffic counts that were done as part of Liberty Corner, which were done in 2016. The 2016 counts were greater than our September 2021. Again, it has a lot to do, I'm sure, with the COVID impacts and so forth. So I utilized the higher traffic volumes and considered the traffic to be generated by this application, and found that the intersection would operate at level service D with the additional traffic from this development. Again, that's consistent with what's acceptable by Ocean County. So this development, consideration of traffic that's not there today from Liberty Corner, as well as the office, found that overall that intersection would operate at level service D. That all, again, be subject to the county's review, because they will review that as well when we make the formal application to them.
So in there, you also anticipated the medical section, that they're going to be renting out to physicians.
Well, that's an internal thing.
Would that be incorporated in his thought process? To
Well, as far as our site, I use retail, which is a higher traffic generator. If there was medical use, then I've overestimated and performed a conservative analysis. And using retail, that represents a higher traffic generator than, say, general office or medical office.
Well, Mr. Kennel, perhaps just to help clarify where your question was, can you, and Mr. Miskovich touched on this, can you generally describe the fit-out process? As each, either somebody, basically meaning that as each tenant comes in, zoning officer looks at the number of parking spaces required and sort of matches it up. And at the end of the day, if they put please explain this more professionally, but at the end of the day, when the last tenant goes in and there's a parking count associated to that tenant, let's say the last tenant is a medical person, and that medical office that they want to put in generates the need for 10 parking spaces, and there's only 8 left, they would either then have to come back for a variance, or they could say, you either have to lose a doctor or you can't have that use.
And we would also at that time have some occupancy in the building and know what kind of parking demand there is in trends. So, I mean, again, if technically we did not meet the township ordinance as far as adequate parking supply, we'd have to do an application to get relief from that, which would also include, having known what the tenants are already in place in the proposed medical, we could do a shared parking analysis, because there's different uses have different peaking characteristics. But the bottom line is if the calculations show that the parking required exceeds the supply, we'd have to come back to the board.
I'm going to jump in as well.
Through the board, through the chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Kennel a question. Mr. Kennel, it's been a while, and I don't have a specific recollection of the various service levels and the explanation. Could you help refresh my memory as to the different levels of service? You refer to this one as a service level D. How many are there? How do you draw the distinctions between the two? And where does D fit in within all of those?
Well, again, we rate an intersection from level service A to F. It's based on delay. And Basically, what happens is for a signalized intersection, have different parameters, and they range for level service D, it's a delay of 35 to 55 seconds. So that's the average delay per vehicle through the intersection. The typical design standard is accepted by Ocean County as level service C to D. I mean, obviously C is better, so that'd be even a better condition, but knowing the traffic loads that are along West Veterans Highway, along Cross Street, level service D is considered acceptable. And a level, 80 seconds of delay is an F. But again, we're in the level service D range. I can give you the exact delay that we have. Bear 1 second. We'll have average delay of 42 seconds. So we're in the mid-range of level service D. We're not close to level service E or obviously anywhere near level service F. I mean, this, based on my almost 40 years, is an acceptable level service from the county standards.
Now, this would be at the intended signalized intersection by Cross Street when all of the proposed improvements are made. And I take it there's a bunch of underlying assumptions, as you've already provided, in terms of full fit out on A and B, both phases, with the retail establishments operating at peak, I presume, correct?
That's correct.
And then, not to be wonky about it, but I'm kind of curious as to how is the calculation actually done? Is it an average over time? And I'm just trying to wrap my head around how you come up with that.
Basically, we look at the number of vehicles being processed in a 60-minute period. And then you have to assess what the capacity is of each movement or each leg of the intersection. And that's based on the number of lanes, amount of green time dedicated to that leg of the intersection. And again, it's a computer program and analysis that's been set up by the Federal Highway Administration, and it's the gospel that we go by.
So it's a formula that's approved and been used, and this is what you've applied in this particular situation?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Frank, I know you want to jump in, go ahead.
On either one of those, on either one of the two issues.
To Mr. Book's comment, it's based upon empirical data. It's watching traffic delays, and they develop these formulas based upon volume and capacity. In simple terms, the more traffic, the higher the volume going through a particular, let's say, lane on a roadway, you're getting closer to capacity, traffic gets more condensed, moves slower. You're reaching a capacity, a point where you have stoppage or takes a long time to get through. And if you picture like a curve, like a bell curve, for example, that represents volume and delay. And all this is discrete. We pick points on that bell curve for A, B, C, D. So that's kind of how it's developed. I mean, D could have been 50 seconds if they wanted, but they felt that a reasonable point, relatively free moving traffic is a C, D a little bit of delay, but it's still moving. When you get to E and F, you got a lot more congestion, a lot more lines. And if you consider what might be an E or F, look southbound South Hope Chapel Road at East Veterans during the evening peak hour. You see what kind of that is towards that level of service E or Fs. It's just longer delays, that's all.
Do you agree? I'm sorry, through the chair. Do you take exception to any?
No, I don't take exception to what was in the report. I went through that and I agree with the calculations of what they represent. But there was a comment made, and it might be contrary to Mr. Murphy's testimony, because we talked about when the improvements would be done for this site, all the road improvements and intersection improvements relative to when these buildings would get COs. And I thought Mr. Murphy's testimony was all the road improvements and all would be done prior to any of the really coming with buildings or COs at that time. But Mr. Cannell kind of indicated that the county's improvements are lagging behind.
Yeah, I think what
might
Mr.
be-
Murphy's testimony was, is all the frontage improvements that we control as part of this application would be done prior to a CO.
All right, so that then leads to the next question to the board. Okay, at some point, as these buildings come online, and become occupants, you're going to reach some level when that triggers need for certain improvements. Like maybe when the new signal and the double left turn lane across street has to be done. So I don't know if that calculation's been done, at what level of occupancy triggers the need for certain road improvements.
Well,
Other than we know that their side of the road would be widened in the beginning. And as I understand it, the road into the site will be realigned opposite Cross Street.
that's correct. And I did do an analysis without the county improvements being in place, and that's where I represented that it would be an overall level service D without the county's widening, but all the other improvements on the site frontage would be completed.
I guess the question is, at some point, the boards are going to want to see when the county's signal and intersection improvements are operational. And I don't think they want to wait till the entire site's built out, and the county's still lagging behind. So there's some correlation between when the county improvements come online and at what intensity of development is approved or occupancy is approved. I don't know what that number is at this point, that's all.
Very good, Frank, and you didn't want to speak, see?
Well, but if.
It was going to be last night.
Frank, I want to follow up a little bit.
Correct.
At least on one tangent. I mean, if the calculations turn out to be incorrect in reality, what can be done, if anything, to improve it? So if the assumption is based, with all of the assumptions that have come into the evaluation and conclusion leading to a D, if the assumptions turn out to be wrong, or, and I'm going to digress a bit, in the event that the county doesn't catch up and leaves us kind of hanging, which drops that service level to a lower level, what can be done to quote unquote make it right or improve it, if anything?
If I may comment in that,
Yes.
I don't think the board can deny an application based upon county improvements. If it's safe entry into the project, the burden is on the county to do the
Use queuing, the length of backup, and help the operations. If the applicant is wrong in his projections, or say the tenants come in and it's higher traffic generation that may have been anticipated, the question is what will happen? Well, you'll look at the movements. For example, the left turn eastbound into the site, number one, maybe it's too short based upon the current numbers. It may have to get a little bit longer striping-wise to accommodate a higher increased volume, but that would have to be something you need to evaluate later. Maybe it's tweaking the timing. Maybe the timing has to be adjusted, either by particular time of day or just in general, depending on the numbers. So the point being, it has to be monitored, and there always has to be maybe some adjustments if the numbers are wrong. And even if they're not wrong, it just may need tweaking. Because obviously, as things develop over time, they need to be adjusted. And with today's signalized equipment, that ability is in the controllers and everything to really monitor and make adjustments on a time-of-day basis, so they can balance the demand. It's a lot more flexibility. So those are things that can be done. My concern was that if the county's improvements are lacking so far behind, at some point, we may need to look at what, if anything, needs to be done to either tweak the existing signal timing or other striping changes. So maybe at some point in the development, there's another study done. If there's an occupancy, whatever that is, 50%, 70%.
So may I
Needs to be
again,
looked at.
So to put a highlight on this, I put it on the table. And again, I stand to be told incorrect or I'm crazy or whatever. But maybe the compromise, because I don't know if the applicant has made that study yet, is that they, after phase one is constructed, that they be directed prior and obtain COs, and at that point on phase one, that at that point they be required to submit to the professionals an updated traffic study, particularly if the county has not yet done its improvements for an and again, you can kind of clean me up a little bit, but then at that point, there could be a proper evaluation made as to whether or not they need an amended final, what the tweaking is to ensure that everything is lining up. Is that concept, have I explained even if I didn't articulate it well, the concept is out there? And do our professionals have any issue with that, or because I'm trying to create a mechanism for protection for the municipality, because the testimony was clear during the use variance that the intersections that you've studied are not good. And whether they're to the naked eye versus empirical data, whether they're D, E, or F, there are certain points and times in this town when you're at those two intersections that they don't appear to operate empirically at the D credence.
Well, again, it represents a whole 60-minute period. You may be there a 5-minute section of it may be more delays than it is for another 10-minute section of that hour. And we look at over a 60-minute period, the average delay per vehicle. So there are times that the delays are going to be greater during that 60-minute period, and there's times it's going to be lower. And that's, again, the basis how we evaluate an intersection. But I just wanted to clarify, as I stated earlier, the intersection would operate level service D with or without the county improvements. That's the analysis that I conducted, so I just.
Well, that's your test.
If I might, Scott, the county has jurisdiction over this intersection, correct? If you come in and in any phase of that, you exceeded what the county perceived to be the capacity of the intersection or the safety of the intersection, they simply wouldn't approve it, correct?
That's correct. I mean, and they're going to scrutinize this they haven't even seen this analysis yet because we're trying to get through this phase.
My
So-
point is what the safeguards that Mr. Gertner is trying to put in place are the responsibility of the county.
Correct.
And if you were to exceed the capacity of the intersection, the county would say, we'll approve it, but you have to build them. There might be a point in this conversation where, while Mr. Murphy said the county's going to build it in 3 to 5 years, if you guys exceeded some safety standard, that the county would tell you to build
There
them,
may be
correct?
an interim phase of part of their improvements.
So
Correct.
while the board might want to put a safeguard in place for its residents, it really is the county's responsibility to do that.
Correct. And again, here's another, the county is going to assess a traffic impact fee for this development. So sometimes what happens there is if there's another improvement, say, instead of the full 4 lanes, but what they say you need 3 lanes on our approach, that would be deducted from what we ordinarily would have to pay as our traffic impact fee. There's a back and forth, but to Ernie's point, they're going to evaluate that when they see the application. I mean, we've had discussions with the county as it relates to how the access system will be designed, but we haven't done the formal with the traffic study for the board's benefit.
Okay. Jeff, you wanted to jump in, something about, you had something, jump in there.
It had to do with parking, so when we get back to that, I will jump in.
I think he's done with parking, so why don't, I'm looking at the look, so.
It's back to you.
So I know I was curious what was discussed at the use variance stage. So I pulled a resolution. You know, there's 12,000 plus square feet of retail, office, and restaurant. and then another 16,000 square foot of retail, office, and restaurant. And when we discuss, and once again, I don't recall what was exactly discussed, but if all 12,000 square feet of one building is a restaurant, that's going to eat up a majority of the parking. And if all the 16,000 square feet of the second building is also a restaurant, that's a worst-case scenario, we're going to run out of parking early and often. Is it still going to be up to the zoning officer to do a case-by-case basis on every tenant fit out?
That's our intention, yes.
Okay, good, thanks.
That was my initial question in regards to the restaurant that will be placed in there and the parking. So I'm glad that Jeff looked that up.
Yeah, if the trend is drive up, we were not going to have any restaurant tenants, but, you know, they're there. We'll see what happens. It'll be controlled by each.
Well, no. So we clarified that. May I ask Mr. Peters a question, though, that assist, or Mr. Hill, or Mr. Viskovich? Is it just unnecessary between phase one and phase two to ask the applicant to do another traffic study to determine or to assist the county in assisting the residents? I mean, would that do any good? I'm not trying to spend money where it's not necessary, but does it provide any additional information and baseline?
My personal opinion is that it would likely have there'd be no difference from what's being said now. Again, we go back to, if the county did nothing, it operates as a level of service D. If they do everything, it still operates at a level of service D. So there's, my personal opinion is I don't think it would have any, there's no advantage to doing that.
I think the only issue is who are the tenants and what is their need for parking? And we'll be demonstrating that as we apply for each CO in terms of the adequacy of parking on site.
So that point, Mr. Chairman, is directed to your concern with parking, not the intersection concern that.
That's a different issue.
I think, Sean, I'm going to piggyback on it. If the county thinks that's going to be an issue, they'll likely require or request that information as well.
So since you said that, I was ready to just leave that go. Since you said that, now I got to go one step further. We've had applications where the board has said, we agree with everything everyone has said about the county, but we as the board view the county as slow in making road improvements in this town, and we want to have a piece of information to ensure that they don't forget about us north of Route 70. So for fear that I'm leading this charge, and it's not my role, though I reread the use variance and I'm hearing the testimony, what I'm trying to just have out on the record at least is there something this board can do to ensure that the county respectfully doesn't fall asleep between phase one, as an example, between phase one and phase two, notwithstanding the testimony?
I was trying to go back through my notes and testimony, and I don't know if it was, we talked about phase one and two, but I don't think we ever had a time frame of how long it would take to build out phase one. Has that been put on the record?
No, that has not,
And
other
what would
than
be
it,
anticipated, if I may ask?
yeah.
And before you answer that, the subject being that it's going to take the county 3 years or so, that's the projection, it's going to take 3 or 4 years to build phase one out. We maybe just be chasing the dog's tail, if you will, because we're probably going to come online at the same time. And then maybe that's the trigger point. If nothing happens in 3 or 4 years, maybe that's something gets revisited.
I think the testimony has been that phase one will be constructed and rented and completed before they start phase two, because Clayton Industries occupies one of the buildings there, and they have to relocate, and they're not going to get out of there before they have to. So it is a fairly long time period. Can't pin it down to you to say they'll start phase two in 3 years.
No, not phase two, but how long would it take phase one, roughly?
I'd say phase one is a 2 to 3 year development.
So it's kind of consistent when the county's improvements would be online.
That's fair analysis, sure.
If that helps the board any, is that?
Evan?
So in multi-phase, we've had one or two multi-phase projects over the years where we've granted, the board has granted preliminary or final for the first phase, preliminary for the second, and then when they come back for final for the second phase, that's when you could inquire about updated traffic studies. That's been done in the past for much, much larger projects. But, and I think I don't know if it's appropriate here, but it's been done in the past.
So I quite frankly, as much as I was driving the first piece, I'm not so sure that's necessary here, but nevertheless, I think updated traffic, given the fact, again, it was clarified, right, that they're gonna fully rent out and be done with phase one, that is a perfect time to at least have to resubmit some information based on as-built conditions, so that the town can go to the county and say, look. Yeah.
So my question, yeah, you get bad traffic results back, what are you going to do? We don't have jurisdiction unless we don't give them full approvals.
You're right.
So doing it's just going to send them back to the county who ultimately has jurisdiction.
Very good. So we got the answer. Okay. You got a meeting back there? Okay. Go and continue here. So is your presentation,
I've completed my direct, yes.
what did he say?
I completed my direct.
Okay. So any questions for this? All right. So that's the end of your presentation?
Yes, just clarify one point, and that had to do with the gas station sign that would go up. Applicant will fully comply with whatever the requirements, or whatever is permitted. So we're not going to seek a variance.
So let me open it up to the public. Anybody here wish to speak for or against, any comments? Come on up and get sworn in.
Sir, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So I do.
Can you kindly give us your full name, spell your last, and your address, please?
Ed Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N, 22 Abercorn Court, Jackson. At what point in town, I don't care what rating we give these roads, at what point in town do we say there's enough cars on the road, we got to stop the building? I go to the diner in the morning, I can't even get back on Hope Chapel Road anymore. I can't turn right on Veterans Highway to get on Hope Chapel. If we're going to improve East Veterans Highway, what good is it? We can't get on Hope Chapel to go home on Cooks Bridge. What point do we stop all this building and work on the roads first? I mean, all of our roads, not just the East Veterans Highway. They got north, south, east, and west. We all got to work on them. There's no thoroughfares. Everybody's going straight through Veterans traffic light now and turning right on Pitney. And there's 8 cars loaded up on Pitney trying to get on Cooks Bridge now. I don't know what you want to do, but this is not the answer to keep building around here.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you for coming forward. All right, not seeing anybody else coming. Oh, come on up. Come on up. I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
I'm short, but still.
I hope we're talking loud enough for you.
Sir, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Can you kindly give us your full name, spell your last,
Joseph Risciuti, R-I-C-C-H-I-U-T-I,
and your address, please?
7 Corey Lane, Jackson.
And Mr. Risciuti, maybe I shouldn't do this, but it's nice to see you it's nice to see you in person. I'm so used to seeing you over Zoom.
I know, and my backlighting wasn't all that great.
Exactly. Go ahead.
One question I've got, I know when I drive by the property, the Clayton warehouse garage is lower than the front. What's the ground elevation? What's going to be done with the front end? Is there going to be a berm in the back wall? Or are they going to slope it all back to the garage?
Whomever answers needs a mic.
Microphone. Who's got it?
I don't know if you understood my question, but the ground elevation is different from the front to the back.
Absolutely. So So as you come back, I guess Exhibit 3, maybe? Thank you. So the grade comes up from the roadway. Oop, there we go. Comes up from the roadway just about to where the T intersection is that'll go to each phase. And then we drop down into down this driveway back into the Clayton yard. So it drops off pretty substantially. So these buildings will be up higher than this yard here, which also helps to shield.
Is there gonna be a berm on the backside to,
No,
so it's still gonna be sloped, but just,
yeah, exactly.
because the stormwater runoff, you know, that's all gonna go to the garage.
No,
You're gonna have, you're gonna have drains in there, those retention basins or whatever.
Yeah, we're picking all that up. Yep, so it doesn't go that way.
Okay.
They're not going to flood themselves.
I hope not. He's laughing, but I
Mr.
mean. I
Mr.
hope
Clayton
not.
and Gordon won't appreciate that.
And then the second thing is the traffic. And like Ed was saying, if you're going on East Veterans and want to make a right on North Hope Chapel, you're stuck because now traffic, they're blocking it, they're blocking the box, so to say. So if you want to make the right, you're going to sit there at 2, 3, 4 lights because people are blocking it. They can't get through. And then you might get 1 or 2 cars making the right. And if you go east from this property here, you got 528 New Egypt, which is about 150 feet away from the service entrance. You got the men's school there. They park on the main road. They just expanded. They put in a parking lot, dirt parking lot, only half utilized because people still park out on now it's New Egypt Road. Making U-turns, it clogs up traffic. You got another new school that's still under development that'll open up for next year. It's more traffic. I know it's not our jurisdiction. It's across the border. But the traffic is going to come from one way or the other. It's going to affect us. You got that school with buses, cars, moms driving to pick up their kids on the side of the road. And then there's another empty lot next to that building. And I can guarantee you, there won't be a home built there. Not with 2 buildings on both sides. There'll end up another school there. More traffic. I know you can't predict the future on traffic, but Cross Street today, I was heading towards Route 9 at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Traffic was from the light across street almost back to Massachusetts. Now, that's almost the whole length of Cross Street. That's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And these traffic studies, you do them 1, 2, 3 times before coming to the board, you're not getting an accurate. Drive it every day. Drive it, and you'll see what it's like. And it's only getting worse. It's only getting worse. Because there's a lot of developments that we've approved for housing. Not a shovel's been in the ground. The ground sits there bare. Nothing's been built yet. North Hope Chapel Road and New Market. That property's sitting empty for how many years now? Once they put houses in, traffic is coming up North Hope Chapel, coming to East Veterans and want to head east. The traffic is getting to be a nightmare, and it's only getting worse. Wait till Jackson Park North and South is built. They all gonna come this way. What road do they travel on? East Veterans Highway. There's no shortcuts no more. That's all, just build it, but build it smart. I know we can't stop progress, but do it smart.
Anybody else in the public want to come forward? All right, closing public session. Jeff, you got a microphone?
Yeah, quick thought. I just want to make sure that when the applicant said that all of their signage will meet the intent of the ordinance, we know that freestanding signs are not permitted in the industrial zone. I just want to make sure that we have a clear, defined detail on the plans. So when we do release the plans eventually, if it is approved, that we know what, the exact detail for all the signage.
It'll do, the applicant will comply.
Thank you.
Will comply with what? Since they're
With
not-
meeting the sign regulations.
As if it was in the highway commercial zone, as an example? As if, what regulations are, What regulations are they complying to? Doesn't permit them.
Permit a freestanding sign. So if we're doing a if we're approving a freestanding sign in the industrial zone, I just want to see a detail when it comes time.
Jeff wants a detail before it gets approved.
Because otherwise they can come in with anything afterwards and he'd have to say no.
That'll be in the motion. Right? Detail.
For the front edges, but not for the.
Yeah.
I think that's what he said.
Yeah, maybe we can clarify that, because are you speaking of the maintenance facility of Clayton in the rear, or are you referring somehow to the front development here?
Well, the front development, I thought I heard testimony that there's going to be a freestanding sign,
Right.
perhaps a pylon sign, which,
Right.
and the pylon sign, and I don't have the code in front of me, but there aren't freestanding / pylon signs permitted in the industrial zone. So if you say you're going to.
Well, but we got a use variance for that zone, right?
Okay, so then when you come in with a freestanding sign, what's the ordinance that I go to?
I think you give us the sign ordinance that pertains to the use variance we got.
So it would be highway commercial, I guess then.
That's what I,
Well, right.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
So
Who's on the property, don't go there.
Okay. All right, so we'll seek a variance to allow a freestanding sign, and that'll be for the gas station.
How big?
16 feet high, and figure, yeah, all right, so we'll go 20 foot high, and figure it's at 200? All right, 200 both sides.
Is that right with you, Jeff?
I'm not voting,
No, I'm just asking.
but knowing what the maximum square footage is for a freestanding sign, which is, I believe, 75 square feet,
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Through the chair, are we only concerned about the gas station sign? What about the other two monument signs at the entrance? Is that a concern?
Monument signs are permitted in the industrial zone.
They are?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
With the maximum square footage of, I believe, 30 square feet, 6 feet in height. Yeah, some of the things I shouldn't be citing.
Just a gas line.
Yeah, it's only the pylon sign for the gas.
And of course, the color of the lettering in proximity to the intersection of the traffic
that they
light.
agreed to.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we're missing? Professionals weekly? Good, all right. They're finished. You're done?
I'm done, thank you very much.
We got a few minutes here to decipher the feelings of the board members and come up with a concept. Go ahead.
All right.
I'll jump in, all right. That's all right, Mr.
Jump
Chairman.
in. You all right, Carl? You gonna go?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
You go with it? You got it?
It cracks me up.
I saw you reaching for your microphone.
Yeah, getting ready. All right, I'll address the two variances first. I think they're relatively straightforward. Where is it? The one in Mr. Peters' report regarding the minimum side yard setback or variance, Mr. Murphy testified about that curved section, which is the entrance, I believe, and the exit to the back portion of Clayton's. His testimony is reasonable to me. It seems to me that the benefit of leaving it the way it is, not forcing him to straighten it out, it outweighs the overall detriment. He can make a straight line there, I believe, for the purpose of creating the lot, and it also may slow down the traffic going in with that curve, and there's also a certain aesthetic element. So I don't see any great detriment, and I have no major issues with granting that variance. As to the sign variance, okay, a bunch of information was just put on the record. In regards to the sign, I'm glad because that was very confusing. So the pylon sign for the gas station, 20 feet high, 200 square foot for that gas station.
That's 200 square feet total.
Total, thank
Yes.
you.
That's 200 square foot total, so it's 10 by 10 on each side, so 100 square feet on each side.
Okay, then I misunderstood, thank you. Again, also seems reasonable under the circumstances of this intended development. I don't see any significant detriment here as well. So in terms of having a sign that size seems reasonable and also seems most appropriate to the development that they plan. All right, so which gets me to the traffic. The traffic is abysmal there now, and I know I can't lay that at your feet and make that a justification on its own to deny the part of the application. But boy, am I looking hard for an answer. I'm looking for some way to monitor this, or at least pull you guys back in if something comes down the road, or if you're applying and you're dealing with the county, some way of keeping us in the loop. Now, I don't know what the mechanism is, but you know, this D level, that's not a D level to me. I resonate with what Mr. Bannon said, with Mr. Ricciardi said. I'm on those roads a lot, and I'm sitting there for a heck of a lot longer than 80 seconds. I mean, there's lots of other developments happening, and the traffic is just horrendous. Again, it is not my intention, so it's clear for the record, to make that your responsibility, because it's not your responsibility to control all that traffic. But I would like the tweaking that Mr. Miskovich talked about to somehow, if that could somehow be manipulated in earlier rather than later, maybe to make a bad situation maybe not as bad. I don't know what that mechanism is, but at a minimum, at least, I would like to see some type of a coordination. Maybe Mr. Gertner can better articulate what it is I'm looking for, but something that pulls what you're doing in with the county into us so that we see what's happening and perhaps can participate in a discussion. Board members, that's my concern on the traffic. I don't know exactly how to make that happen, but that's my concern. Otherwise, I really don't have a problem with the application.
Traffic issue, I echo what the folks said, we can't penalize the applicant for this, but the situation there is abysmal. Certainly the county is aware of it, as to how to petition the county to reassess, move forward with any plans. That's not for the sports, decide or even petition. It's citizens of Jackson to petition the county for that, as well as the applicant, in their own best interest, to pursue the county and push the county. I don't see what the board has any foundation to stand on, to make any type of written recommendation or anything, or.
Well, no, the board, so respectfully, the board, I agree as a tenet of legal practice that the board can't punish the applicant and deny the application based. However, there can be, in my opinion, there can be mechanisms incorporated into the resolution of compliance that assist the municipality in monitoring the status of the county improvements and ensuring that the testimony that approved, with testimony granted, that it was correct, so that if for some reason the traffic counts are increased, at least there's a mechanism to get those, to ensure that the facts, the new facts on the ground, get down to the county to look at something. You've done that before, and that's the level at which the board can petition you, Vice Chairman, to do that.
So one of the, Ernie and I were just kind of speaking a little bit. The applicant, when they're dealing with the county for their approvals on this, the applicant, there's two possibilities that could come up. One is the county could tell the applicant, all right, just pay your fair share and we'll take care of everything, other than just the roadway, the frontage improvements. That's one option. The other option could be the applicant could be strongly encouraged by the board to construct that portion as part of their site plan. Now, the board can't force them to do that, but they can highly encourage the applicant to petition the county to build the extra improvements rather than paying the fair share.
So I've spoken to the applicant, and maybe what we could agree to, if it's acceptable, is at the end of phase one, when it's constructed, we have the traffic consultant send a letter to the board, either confirming that the level of service is still D or better, and if it's not, he will report that to you. And what the board can do at that point, defer to legal counsel, but we still need COs. There is I think a little bit of a control that you have, maybe not totally legally enforceable, but the Claytons have been in this town for many, many years. They're not interested in creating problems for the board, themselves, the community. I think there's a little bit of good faith that we'd ask you to consider in that respect.
So with that, along that line, if the board would generally approve that concept, Mr. Leone and I can work on that language, coupled with the encouragement that instead of paying fees in lieu of constructing, that you strongly encourage the county to permit the applicant to build instead of pay everything that they can build. Because Mr. Costanzo and Mr. Leone echoed this. At the end of the day, the applicant is not served. Their own self-interest is not served if folks are frustrated in their ability to get to the site. So there is an economic incentive, a natural economic incentive on behalf of the applicant. You articulated that to ensure that the county gets moving on these improvements as well.
Right.
So
Thank
I
you.
have no issue with that because you're a rock and a hard place there. I think you've given a little bit on that. I appreciate that. So you saw, I'm going to use your words against you, but I'm telling you I'm doing that, which is you started this piece of the application, right? You said, oh, the board bends over backwards to ensure that the individual folks are taken care of. So in this particular case, you're a citizen too. The board understands that. And as a good steward, talked about the Claytons being here a long time, as a good steward for the citizens, we highly encourage you to work with the board and the township, which you've already said you don't have to say anything. Don't overtry the game. To work with the board to ensure those improvements are moved forthwith. The board can recognize it's a shame, maybe I should be quiet too, but it's a shame, for instance, that there was no foresight along these roadways like there was along West County Line Road. Out of the board's control, it's out of the applicant's control. We need to, should the board approve this, all the board's asking for is you work as a teammate towards improving those two intersections.
We share that and appreciate that.
So in closing, from me, oh, she has something?
Oh, okay.
In closing, totally agree with Paul has presented, and that legal counsels are gonna sit down together, okay? I'm in total agreement with this application, I stay favorable for it. It's just the traffic issue, and Frank, make sure they got enough parking spots that you're happy with, okay? That's important, and I'm ready for a motion here, and a second.
I'll move to approve the applicant's application, granting the variances as previously set forth on the record. One for the side yard setback on the entrance, the other on the pylon sign, and with the, I guess with, I don't know, with the condition or with the representations made by the applicant regarding obtaining a traffic study after Phase 1 regarding the D, and also with what Mr. Hill placed upon the record in regards to potentially building out as opposed to paying a fee in lieu thereof, and wherein, I guess, Counsel, Mr. Leon and Mr. Gartner will work on specific language in order to capture that concept. With that, I would move to approve.
We got a motion, a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
I'm having a hard time with this one. Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Costanzo?
Yes.
Mr. Najarian?
Yes.
I thank the board for your patience and your cooperation and your good faith. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I wish everybody a happy holiday, happy New Year, God bless.
Safe, healthy.
Safe, healthy. And I need a motion to,
All in favor of closing?
closing.
Move to close and adjourn. Go home.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.